Hello and welcome to Imp's LOP radio adventure. My name is Matt Mayer, aka Imp, columnist of the Imp's Adventures series on lawsofpain.net and your host right here on LOP Radio. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheDamnImplicat, and as I just plugged, you can read my columns on Laws of Pain. I posted one yesterday on the latest New Japan show, as well as like a 5,000 word piece at the weekend. So it hit me after I posted it, like, Jesus Christ, I've done like 8,000 words in 3 days? That's a record for me. It normally takes me like 2-3 weeks to write anything around that. So, yeah. I didn't even realise I'd written that much till I posted. So, I deserve my rest, essentially. But rest comes for no Imp. For today is currently Tuesday. We're recording this a couple of days early because we wanted to not forget what happened and talk about it whilst it's nice and hot off the presses. So, I am joined by columnists and regular guests of this show and others on LOP Radio, which we will remember to plug. We will remember to plug those. SirSam to talk about King of Pro Wrestling, which for us aired yesterday. So welcome, SirSam.
G'day, Imp. Thank you very much for having me. And you can also find my columns on lordsofpain.net, just the same as Imp, or follow me, Sir_Sam on Twitter. Sorry, Sir_Samuel. Oh, goodness me. We're in for a night, Imp. It's gonna... We haven't even started and I'm making mistakes.
I love it when I do that. The intro is my most dangerous area. That's the place I always make mistakes. So it's like an amazing first impression always made by me as I giggle through the intro because I've mucked it up. So well done, mate.
Particularly if you do it live.
Because I can't edit it out. And then regular fan Kath, she'll send me a message like, well done, him. So I spot the sarcasm.
Oh, she's lovely. It's probably genuine, you know. She's probably just wants to give you encouragement because she's such a lovely person.
I was like when I had J Cool on, who's also from Canada, and it's just kind of like, oh no, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, oh no, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry. It's like the British politeness versus the Canadian politeness, and the show never ends. It's just, yeah.
It could be more polite. No one's going to hang up after that phone call. Let's face it, it's just not going to happen.
Well, I was feeling a little bit dangerous. I don't know if anyone else aside from SirSam would get this, but I felt it was a bit dangerous recording the show because my youngest brother had his birthday, and my other brother bought him a DVD of the Umbilical Brothers. I don't know if anyone outside.
They're excellent.
I don't know if anyone outside of Australia has any idea who they are, and because do
yourself a favour. Yeah. They are amazing.
So me and my brothers have always been into comedy, and I've been to the Edinburgh Fringe multiple times. My brother's got a YouTube channel called Arse Raptor, where he uploads stand-up comedy. That got us in touch with actual comedians, and we've done like interviews and things in the past. So there's a channel with me interviewing Ramesh Ranganathan, and we've interviewed loads of people where now they're the people coming up on Netflix, whilst like 4 years ago they were names doing the circuit. So we can now go, oh, I've met that person, where they weren't a name when we interviewed them. But yeah, so I watched the Umbilical Brothers, and it's dangerous recording a show after watching one of their shows.
Oh, if you got something that they've done stuck in your head, you're gone, you're lost.
I don't know how to explain them. They're like they're really good at the sound.
They're a cross between mime and, well, it's like mime but with sound effects. That makes no sense, but they do the sound effects with their mouths for these weird scenes they're doing. So they might be walking through the grass and they make the sound of the grass swishing, but to hilarious effect. Yeah. And it's not just fart jokes either. It gets really interesting, and there's an incredible craft to it. Wow, we are wildly off topic, aren't we? It's been a while since we've done one of these, so we're busy catching up, folks.
Yeah.
How long's it been? When was the last one of these we did, Imp?
Well, according to our Skype log, it would have been Wrestle Kingdom. And I think we were live after Wrestle Kingdom. Yeah. We did appear together on the Ricky and Clive show doing the quiz against each other. And whenever I listen to Keeping It Strong style, your name is brought up as you're talking shit to your opponent.
Yes. Young boy, I'm coming for you, young boy. He's so confident. But you know what? Americans are always confident when they go against Australians, and they always lose.
Before we get into things, I did want to give 2 shout-outs to... Because my show, this is currently covering New Japan Pro Wrestling, but there were 2 shows who are permanent New Japan kind of content providers. So first off, I want to give a shout out to Keeping It Strong Style, who we accidentally just mentioned, so that gave me the good trigger to remember to plug them. Over on Social Super.
Good lads.
Yeah, good lads. The Kiss Boys. Like, thank you for the Kiss Boys. Also, the other one was Yamabushi Cast, which was meant to have an episode last week, but it's not happened. So Yamabushi Cast, they post a show every 2 weeks. So if you want to check them out, I highly recommend them as well. So, and then this show, I'll cover New Japan when there's an event, in a way. So like around Wrestle Kingdom, around when Power Struggle happens next month, I'll cover it then. I might get Jeremy Donovan back on at some point. But I know Young Boy wants to actually make it on, compared to when I booked the Kiss Boys and did the amazing intro, and then Jeremy Donovan actually had forgotten to ask him, and he asked him like the day before, and he was like, what? So that was... so I'll get the Young Boy on at some point, and then SirSam could chat more shit to Donovan. Anyway, so today, before we went live, it was announced yesterday, it was like, oh, that's bloody convenient. They had a press conference, New Japan Pro Wrestling, which was for America Live at 2 a.m. For me, it was 7 a.m. So I still didn't watch it. I went to their Twitter afterwards and got all the news I needed. So they announced some big announcements beforehand, and then the announcements happened. And as SirSam was filling me in before we went live, not everybody on Twitter was super stoked with what they were getting after staying up at 2 a.m. to report the breaking news. And really,
I think part of it was that there was a few different people on Twitter. So one of the other NJPW sort of podcasts out there, Super Jcast in particular, said the people that we have contact with, and they're a fairly decent sized podcast who have sources, actually inside sources, said their sources were very excited about what was going to be announced, and then they just basically announced what had been finalised at Power Struggle the night before. Sorry, Power Struggle? King of Pro Wrestling.
King
sorry.
Pro Wrestling, yeah.
Yes, yeah. They said yes, Okada and Ibushi are going to have a match. They announced that the title will be defended on the January 5th show as well as the January 4th show. So Okada and Ibushi will be on January 4, and then they just announced Liger's retirement match. And I think people were really keen to hear about this tournament that keeps getting mentioned, because there was so much talk about double championships on the commentary the night before. I mean, at first when Naito first started saying it, and then Ibushi kind of picked it up, you're like, are these guys just like shooting from the hip, just saying things to say things? But when commentary start mentioning it lots and lots, you know that something's up. And it's, I think I dubbed it Chekhov's tournament. Yeah. That, like, if they're saying it, it's going to happen. They're not going to keep saying it, and there's not going to be some sort of IC and heavyweight championship. But I think people were expecting something a bit more about that, and it wasn't, maybe like names of who's going to be part of that potential contingent of people competing to be double champ. But it wasn't to happen. So some people who got up at 2 a.m. were a bit disappointed, I feel.
Yeah, like they've introduced the tournament gun to keep up with the Chekhov thing. It's like, surely they're going to fire it at some point.
They've stuck that thing on the wall and shone a spotlight on it.
Yeah.
It's going to go off. We just don't know when Act 3 is yet.
They've had Joey Lawler commentating over the top of it. It's, oh, do you see that? Do you see that gun? It's like, yes. I do see the gun. That's my biggest pet peeve with the Fiend's presentations. Shut up, Jerry. Let him be creepy. I did get so we asked for questions. I say we. So Sam asked for questions, then I retweeted it. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. We did get a lot of them, but also I've had a few things on my actual column post as well. So this actually immediately relates. I didn't know when we'd get these in. So it immediately relates, which is bloody convenient. But commenter on the column, Michael Shaloon. I don't know how. That's how I want to say his name. I don't know how you actually say it. But he says, I think it'd be too obvious and too rematch heavy to have White versus Naito, and then you can have the winner of Okada versus Bushi versus them. He'd prefer it if they gave us a surprise. Like if you have Naito lose at Power Struggle and someone else enters those four people, someone like Sanada, or then you have Naito maybe face a heel slightly lower down the card, like Kenta, not definitely Kenta, but someone like him, and they get two brand new matches at Wrestle Kingdom rather than two matches we've essentially seen before. Personally, I reckon this can do the top 4 guys, because that's kind of what Wrestle Kingdom is. They normally present the top 4 people of that generation, and Wrestle Kingdom is like crowning them of like, these are the top people of this era. It's not quite like the WWE, where they'll try and shake things up and give you extravagant matches, I guess, in a way, which don't always make sense with what's come before. In New Japan, you can predict what's going to happen most of the time. Like, mostly because they've told you the story, they've built up to it. They've introduced the guns, to check off guns. So you're just waiting for those announcements around this time of year. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get like the final year of kind of those 6 people interacting, with the likes of Ibushi thrown in, because of course Omega's left, so just trade in Ibushi. But we had our 6 of like Tanahashi, Jay White, Naito, Chris Jericho, Omega, Okada, and we just rotated them. Different match with the exact same people. And now this year, you just swap out Omega for Ibushi. I don't know what Jericho's going to be doing if he is having his Tanahashi match. But yeah, just rotate them once again. Get the same matches one more time, and that'll be the kind of final year for it. Yes, Tanahashi slides down the card, Jericho goes to America, Omega's not there, so you could do something with the... Yeah, Ibushi gets crowned, you got your 3 Musketeers of this generation, and all that jazz. So yeah, I don't think they will shake it up. I don't even think... It's a good thing for definitely next year, like 2021. I don't think it's necessary this year. You can just crown the people of this generation, proclaim them as that, and then switch it up the year after. Like, that's when Sanada... Because surely Sanada and Evil, at some point, they're going to break through that ceiling. But for now, yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I sort of get where he's coming from, in that it is... I mean, the minute that Naito's in that tournament, it is pretty obvious that something's going to happen with him, because that's the story, and that's good storytelling that's going to happen. Like, for example, to use a different sort of analogy, if you went to Marvel Avengers Endgame and it wasn't about Iron Man, Cap, and those original Avengers, you'd be like, this doesn't make sense. Like, this is the big finale. Yeah, it's obvious it's going to be about those guys, but the story is what happens to those guys. And I get where he's coming from, because it is sort of predictable, the kinds of people that are going to be in there. I think we'll probably get more into that when we start talking about the main events, which featured Evil and Sanada, but were fairly predictable in who was going to win them. So I understand where that bloke's coming from, but at the same time, like, you've set up these guys as the main characters, so to speak, in this drama that's happening, and it would be poor storytelling to do something different, to just shoehorn someone in. It would feel wrong at this late stage, because that's what we're heading into. This is the biggest Wrestle Kingdom ever. This is something that's been building up to for a long time, and it wouldn't be a great idea. Just the same as if all of a sudden, if in Avengers Endgame, it wasn't about Cap. It was Black Panther was the main character, and Captain Marvel was sort of the sidekick. People would be like, this isn't the climax of what I came to see. It's all right, but it's not what I came to see. When you're doing certain things, you've got to stick to certain characters when you're telling stories this way. So I hope it's those main guys, and it's sort of their crowning moment, almost. And it's not necessarily guaranteed that Naito's going to win this thing. It could well be that they really want to crown Okada as the champion of all champions, or possibly give Ibushi his, like, this is the thing that makes him a superstar for life, is that he goes from never being champion to being double champion in 2 nights, and goes from not being part of the company at the start of the year and being laid out by Will Ospreay at Wrestle Kingdom last year, start of this year, to being the double champion at the end of this year. It's not guaranteed that it's going to be Naito. A lot of us think it is, and there's a lot of people who cheer really who are very full-on Naito fans, but he's not guaranteed it. He's got a great story, but it's going to be one of these main characters, and for good reason.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very grown up with WWE kind of way of looking about it, as in there needs to be a way to shake it up storyline wise, or to add some sudden energy at the last minute. Like you were saying with the Avengers, that is kind of how New Japan do it. Like, they'll do the really slow build. You know who's going to be involved. You know what's going to happen, and then you see it play out with the big battle. And every character you expect to be there is 100% there. And it's just what happens compared to WWE, where they'll do all of that build, do whatever, and then at the last minute, in comes Bruce Willis as John McCain. It's like, you like John McCain, don't you? He's a badass. And then he comes in and kills everybody, and he's the one who saves the day. It's just like, I mean, yeah, I like Die Hard, but that's not any of the characters you've built up have just been all pushed to the side for John McCain. It's not quite the same. It's not got the same build of ink to it. It doesn't make any storyline sense. So, compared to New Japan, where you're not going to get anything like that. Yes, it would be unexpected, and people would be talking about it. But does that mean it's good? Probably not. And it rewards you for your investment, and that's essentially what this is. You've got invested in these characters, and now here's their shining moment. Like, they will be made stars at Wrestle Kingdom. So, yeah, I'm not going to rag on WWE that much. It's just, before we come to record, I've been writing my column on Raw, and I've made it like half an hour in. So I'm straight back to Raw as actually no, I've got work. What do you mean you got to do things other than watch wrestling? But yes, so in terms of New Japan and the build to Wrestle Kingdom, I think it's time we move on to the announcements made today at the press conference. So I brought up the conference, but now to actually say what was announced. Before we get to Wrestle Kingdom, there was a little issue of Power Struggle. If you don't really watch New Japan if you've not watched New Japan for that long, Power Struggle is the fast lane of New Japan wrestling shows, where this is the final show which really starts you hurtling towards Wrestle Kingdom. However, it's like if Fastlane was also all of the like Monday Night Raws and SmackDowns where everything gets announced all happened on Fastlane as well. So it's the pay-per-view with the matches, which then sends you home to the biggest show of the shows. But also you get all of your matches announced, and you get competitors walking out and challenging people for titles, and the matches at Wrestle Kingdom are set up. So it's a little bit interesting when you see who's challenging who, what that means going into Wrestle Kingdom, because you're thinking, well, who's going to walk out and what is actually going to be set up for January 4th/5th this year. So our first match, there's only 5 matches announced, but it's going to be like 8 to 10. I don't know if the others will just be like filler tag matches, or if we'll get something like the junior tag put on the line or anything like that. Normally there is. So first up, we've got Hiroki Goto challenging Jay White, to Jay White's dismay of him just shouting at him, like, no, you're not getting a shot. No, why would I give you a shot? And then New Japan give him a shot. So, Jay White's going to be happy and effing and blinding as he walks his way down to the ring. But, so, I'm assuming your feeling towards this announced match is kind of similar to mine, in the sense of this is a Jay White final showcase before Wrestle Kingdom, when he's probably put in that final 4 people, likely defending his title against Naito, I would think, on night 1. So you got your Intercontinental and Heavyweight Championships on both nights, with winners of those 2 matches facing each other on the 5th. Is that kind of your thinking as well?
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm thinking. I guess you look at the way that Goto and Jay White have interacted this year. They've sort of been connected at the hip at different times. And I do love that when Jay White lost the championship at the start of the year, he couldn't shut up about how he was the number 1 contender and how he was next in line. And then when he suddenly wins a championship, he's like, you're not in line, you're not in line, you're not getting a shot, you're getting a shot. Totally lost the lesson that he should have learned as a challenger, not being able to get a shot when he wanted one. But I think he will. Yeah, I think he will probably go. Goto got his win back, so to speak, over Jay White. But I can't imagine Goto getting this. Unfortunately, as good as he is and as great as he is, he's not the guy who's going to go into your biggest Wrestle Kingdom ever, as into this biggest, potentially one of the biggest matches they've ever had as the IC versus the Heavyweight Championship for winner takes all. I don't think he's going to be part of that tournament, sadly, and it's not fair because he's really good. He is, and he's been fantastic the last 6 months in particular, since just before the run into the G1 and the G1. Amazing. His matches during the G1 were phenomenal, just so hard hitting, and he's so reliable, but he's just not. He's not on Jay White's level in terms of where he stands in the company. Jay White is just that sleazy, disgusting, intensely punchable dude that that's going to quash your hero's dreams.
I hope he doesn't do that at Wrestle Kingdom. I really want him to be in that mix, just because it is the crowning moment for New Japan, and he's been part of that rotating 6 of like the final 3 matches for the past 2 years. And this would be including him, but this isn't his year to get crowned. So that's my kind of. He's still really young, so he's got all the time in the. Sometimes you just hit with a reminder of, oh god, yeah, he is in like his early 20s still. Like, it's mental. So
it's crazy to see his development as well, because I mean, crazily enough, he's been part of New Japan the same amount of time I have since he re-debuted. Obviously, not counting his time as a young lion, because my first ever full New Japan match was that Wrestle Kingdom that he took on Tanahashi in 2 years ago, and so I've been watching his development, and boy, has he come a long way from sort of having this character that he wasn't totally confident but had sort of the outline of something that could become something great, and he's shot himself off into the stratosphere, and full credit to him, really. When I saw him live earlier this year, humble brag, saw New Japan live, he was just phenomenal at getting heat for pretty much his home crowd. Like he had his family in the crowd at the Sydney show that I went to. He must have flown them over from New Zealand, because that's very close to Australia. But boy, he could not have been more hated in front of his family as well.
But yeah,
it's actually really funny. His brother is huge, and his brother was arcing up at Tanahashi. It was like trying to talk trash at Tanahashi.
Someone did ask, why was I going to like Royal Quest and that show because they came over to England, and the answer was nope, I was busy covering All Out. There were 3 shows in one day. It's
a crazy day.
Yeah, I was already booked to do something else to cover that for LOP. But yeah, so Jay White being in this final 4, for me, this is a great spot for him. He doesn't need to win. He can lose to Naito, and then you can have your big final. In my head, I'm immediately like, well, as soon as Naito's added, I can't see anything other than Okada Naito. And partly because we've had Ibushi versus Naito so many times this year, that doing it again at Wrestle Kingdom, it feels like there might be a bit of a natural pushback. So there's a chance Ibushi isn't winning. But this would also be in a New Japan style. This is Ibushi's first main event. Very often in New Japan, the first main event guys do not win. Be it Okada, be it Nakamura, be it whoever. Actually, no, Nakamura's the one who did win. Tanahashi didn't win his first main event. I'm getting him a bit mixed. It was in the Inoki era, so it's difficult to act. I often question, should I include it in the way it does a canon? Like, when we look into the future of WWE, and we look at this era, it's kind of like, well, do we include the character things that happen when we tell their story? Because it was kind of not together, it was nonsense, it was booked randomly on the fly. The story, there weren't really any long-going story arcs, so how do you tell their story when it changes every 2 weeks? It's like exactly the same for New Japan in 2003. It's like, I want to include Tanahashi's story of that time, but it's all over the place. It doesn't mean anything, or it just stops and then it starts. So,
well, as someone who's written some big columns at the end of each year about that sort of try and link those year-long stories together, and at the moment I'm trying to thread some decade-long ones together. The trick is you just leave out the bits that don't make sense. Just ignore them.
Yeah. That's quite smart. It just didn't happen, it's fine. But yeah, including Jay White in this bit, he's got his nice character arc going. Just continue to build it. He can lose to Naito. So it's the established leader versus the leader who is still kind of establishing himself. So it's perfectly fine for him to lose. Compared to Naito and Okada are the top 2 guys, and I'm just assuming that'll be the match.
That match is so protected. The last time they did it was at Wrestle Kingdom 12, which was ages ago. So it would be theoretically 2 years since they'd fought one another one-on-one. It's so protected. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm saying this like they don't hold those two apart for so long for no reason. That's what we were saying about like Chekhov's tournament and how they've set these things up. They don't set these things up for no reason. You would have put if you didn't have the plan to have a big show with Naito versus Okada, they would have fought each other at some point.
And New Japan are very good at doing the Triple H thing, where they'll set up and hint at like a million different angles, and they're not all going to play out. But Triple H, whenever he goes out there, he does something. He's just going out there and setting up a million different angles whenever he walks out. It's like last year we saw it with Triple H and Batista, where he just did a thing with Batista. It's probably not going to work out, but why not do it? And then as you know at WrestleMania, it happens. So New Japan are kind of like that, where they'll just throw loads of angles out there. You don't know which ones will play out, which ones will be long term, whatever. But yeah, just throw them out there. They'll happen.
For example, Kenta and the handshakes in the G1.
Ah, yes.
Nothing's happened from that, and I don't think anything will happen to it.
Yeah.
Segueing into
a nice natural segue of Kenta defending his Never Openweight Championship once again against Tomohiro Ishii. Blonde Kenta. Has he got his good theme back, or is he still coming out to his new crappy one?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I don't. It's immediately forgettable. Let's say that whatever theme he's coming.
Well, he had such a good first theme, and it still fit him as a bad guy. It was a theme which is perfectly fine for me. Like, it's a theme that kind of plays of somebody who thinks they're the ultimate boss, and it works perfectly with Kenta. But no, they've given him his blonde song, I'll call it. Got it. But yeah, this is going to be, I'm assuming it's going to be, can we please do our match, and hopefully none of us will get concussed so we can actually do the match. So it's like a second go round. It's good. That's the feeling I'm getting for this one.
And it was, I mean, the interactions between these two at King of Pro Wrestling were really good. Ishii was like baying at Kenta, wanting to just rip his head off, and Kenta was sort of goading him and like teasing him a little bit, and then sort of shying away. It was really, I really like Kenta, and I know that Kenta's been he's had a bit of a mixed reception, but I tell you what, I could not have loved it more. I never watched old Kenta. I started watching the WWE again in 2014, and really didn't watch much in the way of indie wrestling for a long time. So I never had that old Kenta. The Kenta that I fell in love with was the 205 Live Kenta, who was just this arrogant, cocky, overconfident guy who thought he was the boss, the absolute boss of that division, and that's what he's doing now, and it's great. Yeah,
it's kind of like a little bit with Neville, where Neville made this awesome character, but just wasn't allowed to showcase it really. It leaves WWE, and he's able to really dig into that character and really display it and really get it over and get into all the nooks and crannies of the character. And both of them are a fantastic example of going out and being able to flesh it out, working amazingly. Like for me, I feel like I tell this story almost every time I talk about Kenta, but it's like my one Kenta story. So there we go again. So when I first decided to check out the indies, because I went to TNA, gave them a go, and then also, I'm talking like 2009 kind of time. And the first Ring of Honor
I watched TNA back then as well.
It was great back then. Well, mostly great back then. It still had bollocks in it, but it was. But they had the X Division was kicking ass. AJ Styles was a main eventer around that time, and it was our first time where we had a crowd chant "Fuck Hulk Hogan." But it was because they did Samoa Joe, Daniels, AJ Styles 2, and they were like, "Oh, we don't need him. We don't need him. We've got this awesome card." But so the first time I watched Ring of Honor, their main event scene was Bryan Danielson, Kenta, and Nigel McGuinness. Those were like their three big ones, and then different people rotating in. They brought in like Austin Aries and Joey Lynn, and quite a few people randomly. But yeah, those were your three main event people. So the first ever Ring of Honor show I ever watched was Bryan Danielson versus Kenta, and I think they were recapping like a pay-per-view kind of thing. So I've seen that Kenta, where he's like not holding back against someone like Daniel Bryan, who also doesn't really hold back, and it's like obviously pre-concussion problems for Daniel Bryan. So when I say not holding back, I bloody mean it. Or if you watch the Nigel McGuinness documentary, the him versus Bryan match, I think in England, where Nigel McGuinness went to the ring post.
That's a sickening match.
Yeah, and got a massive thing. That's what I mean by not holding back. It was that era of Ring of Honor. That's when I jumped in.
Yeah, I've seen that match. Actually, shout outs to another podcast. This is awesome. They do a match breakdown podcast, and they did that Bryan Danielson Nigel McGuinness match, and they spend about an hour talking about one match and get someone who's never watched wrestling before to watch it and review it with them. Anyway, shout outs to them. They're really great blokes. But that is a sickening match, like just a gross match. And is that what sort of Kenta was like? Just that intense, hard hitting.
Yeah, he fit that style really well.
Full on, unbridled aggression.
Yeah, so it's pretty much what you've seen with Kenta in New Japan, and I guess to Revive to a even more calmed down degree. But yeah, just the same thing, just amped up with aggression and not holding back. And it was really interesting to see it to now where he's starting to bring that aggression back, because he got really tamed in WWE, and you would see it every now and again, and he felt like the final boss a little bit when he left, essentially. Like he was just starting to get into a groove, just starting to find that, and in New Japan he's been able to fully realise it, which is great. And of course he doesn't feel tiny in New Japan, which is another thing that really helps. Like, he's not a cruiserweight. He's not put in that kind of bracket. New Japan are a lot more open, I guess, in that world. Like, they're not going to do a Shorty Gable, essentially. That's just not happening.
Well, I mean, they're not big blokes. I'm not a tall guy, and I'm almost as tall as Tanahashi. I mean, I'm nowhere near as thick and wide. I'm not as muscly at all. But they're not a heightest company at all.
Oh, I had to search his height. I gave it me in meters. I don't know it in meters. 5 foot. Oh, I'm taller than Hiroshi Tanahashi. Oh, that's like it. Yeah, that's a tangent. We're not meant to be talking about Tanahashi's height. Yeah. But yes, I guess the next match for Power Struggle is. I've just realised.
Before we do that, do you think we get Shibata after this match?
If
that was the hottest man,
yeah.
That was the hottest angle coming out of the G1. That crowd exploded when Shibata started raining forearms.
So I think it was from Super J-Cast. I don't know if that's 100% correct, but it was the thing of just reassuring us, don't expect a Kenta Shibata match. Like, it wasn't setting up a match. It's kind of like they're just calming everybody down. Just wait a second. Like, yes, I know it looked like they might have been setting something up, but he's not actually, cleared to properly have a Kenta match. Like, just calm down, everyone.
I'd be more worried about him having a Shibata match. I've seen some of the stuff he did. I may not have been watching since only 2 years, but I've gone back into the history and I've seen some of the stuff that bloke did. I don't want to see him having a Shibata match, let alone a Kenta one.
In terms of a fan, there is a reason why Shibata Ishii was one of my favourite rivalries. When I first started watching New Japan, they were like my favourite matches, and it's just such an incredible intensity to their bouts that if he went against Kenta, it would 100% have that intensity, and it would be something about it. However, the question is he cleared, and is he cleared to that degree? As in, is it definitely safe? Like the question to get in America now with Edge, like there's reports he'll be cleared. Is like is he definitely safe? As in, it isn't the point of could he take a bump? Can he take 100 bumps and be fine? Kind of thing.
Can he take a kick to the head?
Yeah. Or can he do an accidental Jack Swagger concussing Dolph Ziggler and be fine with that? In a way. When it's wrestling, you kind of have to push it a bit further. I'm assuming that's what they are doing with it, like with Edge and Shibata as well. Like, the Japan dojos have got a precedent for a reason. For being really, really difficult and straining on your body. So I'm assuming if he's getting in that ring, he has been pushed beforehand to quite the limit to properly test him. So that's if anyone asks my opinion on Edge, that's my same opinion with Edge. If he has been pushed to the absolute limits in that testing, and the doctors are like, you could take 1,000 bumps and be relatively fine, not taking into account the bump card, which obviously every wrestler says that's 100% a thing, but you could take 1,000 bumps and be relatively fine, then I'm fine with it. In a way.
Is Edge likely to come back?
It's rumours, and I think it all spouted from him delivering.
Far out. Sorry, this is the first. I loved Edge.
Really?
The first run of wrestling I watched from 2008 to about 2010, Edge was one of my favourites. Wow, that's the first I've heard of that.
So it's, as far as I know, it's like currently a rumour, and it's because Fox wanted like big stars and everything, and Edge has been, I think the word was he would be cleared to wrestle, it would be up to him, was the rumour. But of course that for me says...
I just hope he doesn't. I don't want to see it.
It's
anyway.
Like, I think it's because of Daniel Bryan, that's really opened the door for wrestlers who have, and it like gives hope to someone like Paige as well. Just that, like all because you're in this place now, that doesn't mean years down the line you couldn't. Like Steve Austin, he got to a point where he could have wrestled again, but he chose not to, which for his health might have been the right decision. Which is why you look at Shibata, you look at Edge. It's like, yes, you could wrestle, but should you? Like you've already done damage.
If anyone could do that return and do it in a compelling way, it's Edge. In that he's just such a smart. I'm actually going to bring him up a bit later. He was in my notes for a bit later, but he's just so smart in the way he puts together matches, the way he approaches feuds, and the way he's can hold the crowd in his hand. So if anyone could do it and make it really compelling, I reckon he could. But wow, there you go. What do you know? Back to New Japan.
Again, yeah, just a rumour. Yeah, so maybe Shibata, but
don't get your hopes up, Sam.
Yeah, just that's why I find Edge quite a good comparison for Shibata. Like, but don't get your hopes up, kind of thing.
Shibata's not making cupcakes at that LA dojo. Oh, they're doing some work there. He was in good shape. Yeah,
and just like Edge, he delivered his moves as well when he fought Kenta. He wasn't just throwing random elbows or something. He's like, no, he did his running drop kick and everything. Like it was proper. That's the thing that took that segment over the edge for me, was that he didn't just run out and maybe do a tackle and do a mount punch or something like that. Like no, he did his running drop kick. Like he pulled out his arsenal
and launched himself into it.
Yeah. So like that's somebody who has been getting in the ring in that dojo. Like he's been keeping in shape. So yeah. So maybe, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. Like just in case, because it was such a serious injury. So yeah. Next up, Naito versus Taichi. As Naito, I guess, finally gets his revenge. I'm trying to remember the result order for this, because I know Taichi beat Naito in a surprise. I think Naito beat Taichi back, and I think that might have been it. So I think they're 1-for-1 in their recent matches, which would mean this one is the
Naito beat Taichi back?
That's what I thought, unless he didn't, and this is Naito. Because Taichi became a champion, didn't he? Am I being stupid? Am I forgetting? Or did he ever beat him? I don't. I remember
it was in the G1 is when Naito lost to Taichi in the G1.
Ah, okay, there we go. And
so I'm guessing that this would be theoretically Chekhov's tournament. This would be if Naito to get a place in the tournament has to beat Taichi.
Yes. Yeah, and it's one of those things where he should win. However, as one of the people that's been going, no, it's fine. It's still Naito's year. It's still main eventing. It's fine. It's Naito's year, and it's that hope is getting thinner and thinner. And this is the match which will probably decide it. As in, yeah, I'm going in with hope, but the hope is
it'll be a good match as well. I like the way these two interact because they're both cocky and they both taunt their opponents a lot, and they really get sort of stuck into each other with their taunts and with Naito just slowly ambling to the ring and getting undressed, and Taichi and his shenanigans. Yeah, these two are fun to watch.
Yeah, it's like when you see on the card Taichi versus Yano, you're expecting shenanigans. They're not going to go down normally. Yeah, it's gonna be lots of interference on both sides as well. And with Naito, it feels like the reason why I'm still like, nope, this is his year. It's kind of like it's not just his momentum; it's the momentum of his stable as well. Like he is at a point where he's even calling out for the others to. He would love it if somebody like took over Lij kind of thing and it usurped him in a way. And he's getting to that. It's getting to that point where the people in Lij are ready for that elevation. Like Sanada and Evil, within these next 2 years, surely this is their moment, which has an effect on Naito, who himself is aging, about the reports are he's not in the best condition. So if it's not this year, then maybe putting it off a little bit too long, and they might pay the consequences of Naito never getting his moment. unless they do it this year, which is why I'm still like, no, I'm still sticking with it. Like, it's October, it still looks just as grim as it did half a year ago. But it's October.
I mean, the LIJ heavyweights are busting at the seams. They've got, not only do they have Sonata and Evil, now they've also got bloody Shingo Takagi, who, I mean, I feel like he could be, if he ended up next year in winning the G1 and in the main event at the Tokyo Dome, it would not be a surprise to me. And it would be I wouldn't be unhappy about it either. I'd be really excited because he's just so good. And then you've got Evil and Sonata, who I feel like have been ready for a year, just constantly bumping against the main event. I hesitate to call it a glass ceiling, but really they are ready to be just like launched to the next level. But it seems like they're building up to this thing at Wrestle Kingdom, and then after that potentially things will explode and other stuff might happen. Who knows what will happen? We need to do a Wrestle Kingdom preview show down the line. Just pencil that in for December, please.
Yeah, otherwise
I think we're on the same page about these guys. Like, they're ready to go, and Naito getting that moment will allow those guys to then take center stage. Pretty much we are on the same page with it. Like, they're slowly doing it, and Sanada, every single time, when we get to it, we'll talk about it in more detail, but every time Sanada faces Okada, he gets closer. In the G1, he proved he could beat him, and this title match was the closest he's come to actually beating him. So they've been bumping against him, but now they've eventually started to prove they can beat these guys. Like, the reason of Evil versus Ibushi, Evil beat Ibushi in the G1, and of course Sanada beat Okada. So it was both people kind of getting revenge from the G1, but now they've both proved they can beat these top guys. So the next step is to actually beat them with something on the line. So it's... Yeah, so we'll get to that later. But I've done very well at doing an automatic transition to Okada and Ibushi. We're doing really well with our transitions. This is... So we got Ibushi and Tanahashi teaming up to face Kazuchika Okada and Yoshihashi, and we were laughing before the show of one of these men is not like the other. One of these things is... You wonder who's getting pinned in this match.
So Yoshihashi is probably getting pinned by Ibushi, and it's pretty much a guarantee. But of course,
you don't think they're gonna set up a big dome match with Yoshihashi getting the pin on Tanahashi?
If they did that, we're all predicting Tanahashi versus Chris Jericho. We get Tanahashi versus Yoshihashi. On the Keeping It Strong style show, I was listening to, I think the other day, because it takes me ages to get through those shows. It's Lord of the Rings epics every week. But with Yoshihashi, he had that thing of, does his character need something to actually make us care in him at all? And I'm kind of like, my thing on Yoshihashi is he's fine. Like, even as a heel, that doesn't suddenly tell me he's going to improve as a wrestler. And he's shown he can put on a good match. Like in the G1 Climax, he has put on really good matches when he's been in the G1. It's just that I still don't get behind him, regardless. Like, it's not...
I tell you what Yoshihashi needs to do. He needs to turn back time to that match that he had against Okada where they both debuted. He needs to kick Okada in the nuts, pin him 1, 2, 3, then he could take Okada's spot, and then we'll care about him.
But just like Okada, his finisher the first time we see it, it's not that convincing. It's not very good kicking the nuts. But the one against Tanahashi, it's a masterpiece. You're watching it and go, now that's a kick in the nuts. If you've not seen the original Okada-Yoshihashi match, you have no idea what we're referencing. But yes, Yoshihashi didn't do that, so he's taking the pin here. He's been falling ever since, just because he won't kick anyone in the balls. He can't make himself
forever in the shade of Okada.
I feel like he will be that essentially. It's like, I was watching the new OSW. We're just plugging other podcasts in this one. It makes it seem like nice people, I'll pretend. But as we're listening to the new OSW review, they were doing Survivor Series 1993, and it's the match where it's the Hearts versus, I want to say, Shawn Michaels and the people in masks, and they're setting up Owen versus Bret Hart, and I can't remember which commentator it is. It was Gorilla, and I'll just say Bobby Heenan. And Bobby Heenan was just calling Owen Hart the Shadow, essentially, because he's always in Bret Hart's shadow, and that was the whole point. Yoshihashi is the Shadow.
I think that's where the comparison between Yoshihashi and Owen Hart has to stop, though. I won't stand for much more than that.
I'm the only person on these New Japan podcasts who just compared Yoshihashi to Owen Hart. But yeah, Yoshihashi is... I'm so sorry, people who respected my opinion. Just making that comparison. But Yoshihashi is Kazuchika Okada's shadow. He's never escaped it, and I don't think he ever will. And for me, he's perfectly fine in that role. I don't need him elevated, don't really want him elevated. There's people who have surpassed him. Like, people are a bit worried for...
everyone.
Like Toa... like Toa Hanare.
Everyone but Doki.
Yeah. The joke name that I've given it of January 4th is going to be the Dokyo Dome. He's going to get that win. He's going to get over. But with Yoshihashi, for me it's kind of like Toa Henare, where it's kind of like, yeah, you're decent, but when these other young lions come back, you're going to get surpassed. And I'm not really expecting you to get elevated unless you become a part of something like the Bullet Club. But then still, there are loads of people above you. So it's kind of like that. Yeah, but I've kind of.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like Hanare has more upside than Yoshihashi's been around too long. It still hasn't, and has never won a championship. Like, I just feel like Hanare's still got time. He's still got potential. Yoshihashi, I don't know. I feel like we've seen most of what we can see from him.
Yeah, difference to Hanare is he didn't go on excursion, like we're seeing with the. I can never remember his name. But the guy who's currently wrestling in Mexico, what is his name? It doesn't matter. I'll just move on. But yeah, so and Umino's coming over to England. We've got him. He's ours. Suck it. We've got him. And Narita as well, who I think went to Did he go to Mexico or America? I can't remember.
No, he went to LA Dojo.
He did, yeah. Who seemingly just look at their young lions. They're doing a good job.
Oh.
Bloody hell. But yeah, Toa and I didn't go on excursion, and he would be at that point where he's kind of starting to come back. Like with me, I feel like I'm really lucky with my generation of young lions because I had Jay White, David Finlay, Juice Robinson came in a little bit later. Then I had Sho and Yo. Like, that's a top-notch young lions crop to kind of get into New Japan with. And they all went away on excursion and slowly came back. Of course, you had David Finlay and Juice Robinson that kind of didn't, but they slowly climbed the card as well. And David Finlay got his moment, damn it, this past week. But yeah, so I got to see them kind of come back after a year or so and get their big character returns and moments. And Toa Hanai's not got that. And same with Yoshihashi, really, who was just there, never got his big excursion moment. So, yeah.
I feel like Toa Hanare, given... Now, because we're on the topic of him, I actually really like Toa Hanare. I saw, once again, at Sydney show, I saw him and Ishii had a really awesome match. And I mean, having a good match against Ishii is not exactly uncommon, but still, it wasn't just all Ishii doing the work. It was Toa Hanare as well. And also, he had another good match against Shingo in was it the road to this show, or was it a week or two ago? He had a really good match against Shingo, and I think if they needed someone to step up and just fill in a spot in a G1 and take a whole bunch of pins, or even have a bit of a run in the bit of an upset run of maybe one or two upsets in the New Japan Cup, he could do that, I think, and it would be fun matches. He's good at putting on these hard hitting, aggressive matches, and he's getting more intense. He's got a really he could probably use a different outfit, and the sort of the Maori war dance sort of thing. I don't know. It seems like a bit of a lower card gimmick, but he physically looks really good, and he has some really good moves. I love his rugby tackle slam. That's a really cool move, and it's unique as well. No one else does that move. I think he could step up into a solid mid card, to be a solid mid carder, in the next year or so, and it wouldn't surprise me. And it would be, I don't think anyone would be, once he gets a chance to show people what he can do, I don't think anyone would be mad at it either.
Yeah, when I look at him, I kind of think of someone like Tamatonga, who from young line just went into a stable and slowly just grew over time. And Tohanari is just not. Obviously, he didn't have that stable to take him over, and he's kind of been doing it around the likes of Tanahashi and Taguchi, where sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to get your character across where you are not the character getting showcased in those matches, and maybe you have to do a bit of butts.
Yeah.
So it's
and when you're standing next to the person that everybody's looking at as well.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're teaming with Tanahashi or teaming with, those guys, it's the spotlight is on them, and they shine so brightly that it's easy for you to get overlooked.
But of course, the big talking point of this Okada-Hashi, Kota Ibushi Tanahashi match, just to bring it back, is obviously after the match when Yoshi-Hashi's got his win, and we look towards Wrestle Kingdom, and we hopefully this is where we get our Chekhov's tournament actually fired. Hopefully, like his power struggle. This is when they do it. So surely this is the moment where they talk about that one, but they bring up once again the Intercontinental Championship, which brings out the champion, which is probably going to be Jay White, which maybe brings out Tetsuya Naito as his challenger, and we can just take it from there. That's where, because I don't think Naito's had his rematch yet. I think that's right. I'll say
For the IC match.
Yeah,
they don't always do rematches in New Japan though. So
it's a Western thing. Yeah, so it'll be. Yeah, I'm assuming that's when they'll do it. That's when they'll announce it, and then you can look towards Wrestle Kingdom finally with everything confirmed, and they can just build to it for the last 2 months. So, yeah, I'm hopeful that's what's going to happen, and then I can rejoice in my. I told you it's Naito's year. Yes, I said it for like years.
Said it last year, but
and when they faced each other, but still, it's been like 2 years straight. I'm going to be right eventually. And the final match announced for Power Struggle is the Super Junior Tag League final. There's not really that much to talk about this. We have got a lot of the teams, but when I look at them, I'm like, can it be anyone other than Roppongi 3K versus the what Eagles and Osprey called? What are they called? It's just gone.
The Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey. There we go. I was like, Eagles of the Sky. No, Osprey's not in there. Yeah, birds. Yeah, the Birds of Prey. Unless they got Phantasmo and Ishimori, but I feel like they're gonna be the heel team and just miss out. Yeah, so I can't see anyone other than Roppongi 3K versus the Birds of Prey. They're just the top two, and you get your awesome final. That's just what I'm seeing here.
That would be a damn good match. I would like it if that happened. But I mean, any combination of those 3 teams you mentioned, and chucking in Kanemaru and Desperado, as long as we don't get Showa versus Kanemaru and Desperado for like the
20
gazillionth time. Yeah, that would be the final that I'm not happy with. But any of those 4 against one another would be fine, except for Showa versus Kanemaru and Desperado. Not because it's bad, just because I've seen it. And why do that? Why do that when you've got so many other options?
And to move on through this press conference thing, we'll get to the King of Pro Wrestling card after we've taken the advertisement break. But we've got 2 more things to get through. First, Okada and Ibushi was made official. Ibushi reiterated that he wants to hold both titles before then talking about focusing on the Heavyweight Championship. Okada openly stating that, I'll be up for defending the title on both nights. Just like brushing past Ibushi, just like, I'll be open to defending it against him, then someone else. So that's setting up, obviously, just once again, the Intercontinental kind of thing turned into a mini tournament, and you got your semi-finals and your final across night, January 4th and 5th. So once again, hinting at it without actually making it official. So
and don't forget Ibushi throwing some major shade at Okada. It's been lame since you've been on top. Or it's lame that you've been on top so long, or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Echoing. It's like the closest that we'll get to a CM Punk pipe bomb, where the IWC's voice is heard.
But he's Ibushi without a lot of emphasis in his voice. So it's just like, you've been a little bit boring. But also the other thing that was announced was on January 4th, in terms of Liger's retirement, he's been booked for an 8-man tag. So you've got Liger and their team captain Tatsumi Fujinami teaming up with the great Sasuke, Tiger Mask and El Samurai will be at ringside. These are all very big names. Obviously, most of them from the junior division, kind of like the big names like Tiger Sasuke and El Samurai, who were big names in the junior world with Liger when they were really making that division. Fujinami, just a massive name from wrestling. As in, he's weirdly the odd one out purely because he's just a massive name. And he's like hugely respected, one of the biggest names of his generation, so... That's the only the reason he doesn't fit in is because it's like they've put Hulk Hogan in there with some really good cruiserweight guys. Like, yeah, I really like Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio, but what's he doing there? So yeah, so obviously not like Hogan because Fujinami is actually highly respected. So you got that. And they'll be facing Naoki Sano, Sanjiro Utani, Tatsuhito Takaiwa, and Ryusuke Taguchi. With
the
Kobayashi.
funky weapon.
Yeah, weird. Funky weapon, and they'll be joined by Kobayashi. And as you can tell by my fluentness of saying those names, I've only heard of Utani, Taguchi, and Kobayashi. So I don't actually know Takaiwa and Sano. I feel like I should, but that's the end of that. I don't. And so Sam knows less than me. So we can't really preview that side that heavily. So, yeah. Oh well.
They have hairlines similar to mine, and that's not a good thing.
Oh, yeah. What a preview. They're all old. So, I guess. Interesting, it's said to be the main event, but of course they had like 3 main events last year, so who knows what that actually means. Wrestle Kingdom generally force shows on Alien to put in on a big kind of attraction match like this, and as it's Liger's last match, I wouldn't be surprised if it main events. It would obviously
did that, it was a number of Wrestle Kingdoms ago. I remember when I was watching all the Wrestle Kingdoms, I can't remember which one it was, but there was a big tag match that happened after the championship matches.
Yeah.
It was like the celebration of the Three Musketeers that came before Tanahashi, Nakamura, and Shibata.
Oh, yes, it was. Yes, they've done that quite often. And in 2009 as well, because they got Misawa, and he got a...
Yes,
yep. Yeah, and he got an incredible pop, which they can't play on the New Japan World. It's kind of just like, oh, it's the sad part of missing all the entrances, is that you miss a lot of the atmosphere. And for a lot of those guys, their entrances added a lot to their character, and they were awesome. So you have to. I've ended up quite often when I'm like looking into the past kind of stuff. I'll go onto YouTube or the internet and search for the entrance, play the entrance, then go to the match, just to get the whole atmosphere. They're all, especially Great Muta. Adds a lot watching his entrances. So, it's like watching The Fiend without The Fiend's entrance. It's kind of just, it adds so much. It's really, really weird not having it. Like, arguably the best part of his match. Completely gone. And the other thing that was announced was Liger stated during his talk putting over everybody in the match. He said he wants to face someone on January 5th that he's not faced before, and he wants to build up to Wrestle Kingdom by facing opponents, like just ticking off the list, just facing all the guys he wants to face that he hasn't yet. Who that's going to be, I don't know. Maybe this is somebody gets showcased from the current era and gets put over by Liger on his way out. As in, my God, it's another incredible thing of the veteran takes one and puts someone else over. It's like, who's going to be the Baron Corbin in this situation?
I don't think it'll be on Wrestle Kingdom. It would surprise me if it was, but he did have those interactions with ELP back in the Best of Super Juniors, and ELP kept on taunting him. So it wouldn't surprise me if those two face each other. That would be a fun match, kind of to just put a bow on that little story.
Yeah, maybe that'll be like on the road to there.
That's what I was thinking. Road 2, or if they don't get into the finals, maybe it'll be at Power Struggle.
I wouldn't be surprised if like every single one of his matches is a bit like the Suzuki one in the fact of he just loses, and then the whole point wasn't actually the result. He put someone over, but then Liger gets to do his like bowing out, and everyone goes, "Oh shit, yeah, he's actually going. Oh, that's sad." Just do all that, and it works tonight or last night. So. I can see that happening. He's just putting people over on his way out. It's like, oh, what a gentleman. Just lifting everybody up on his way out. Oh, how nice of him. And who
would you pick? Who's someone that you would pick as an opponent for him?
Like, immediately I thought of Sanada, but I'm not really sure how much that helps Sanada, who is already at that point of defeating heavyweight. So maybe it is somebody lower down. Could it be Will Ospreay? Is it like the next generation of the junior guy taking that mantle? But then Ospreay's at that point of breaking out of the juniors, and he's champion, so he's kind of got to defend his title. And they have.
I mean, my boy Robbie Eagles, he'd put on a show. I don't think it'll happen, but
one day he will get his singles match. For all we know, the Birds of Prey are ill-fated, and that'll be your championship match.
You'll go back to Bullet Club.
When everybody agreed that it's such a better fit, having him as a babyface again. It's like, no, I'm just going to turn it over. Yeah, I don't actually know who it'll be. Because there are quite a few names it could be, and that's why I was thinking of like somebody like Ospreay's on the verge of becoming a heavyweight, or one of the heavyweights is on the verge of breaking through to that top tier. I feel like it's going to be one of those
even
names.
Someone like, I mean, the first name that of course sprung to my mind was Moxley, just because that's who I always think of. And you know, it doesn't seem his contract ends at Wrestle Kingdom, so it would, you know, it doesn't matter what happens in that match in many ways if Moxley's on the way out. So it could be a way to give Liger a huge win, or, you know, just have another one of those incredible respect spots, but also give Liger a real feature match against a genuine star. Unless
we do get Yoshihashi Tanahashi, but the reward other way round is Liger versus Jericho. If you're going down that route if you're going down that route of respect.
They would have faced before back in the 90s, wouldn't they?
I mean, Jericho,
man, that would be good.
And Jericho was Liger. Rematch, Jericho was Liger for a little bit. They can come out as Jericho's Liger versus Liger. Just for one more time.
Yeah. I didn't know that. There you go.
Well, it was a version of Liger. I'm actually going to Google it just to see if I can get it right. Just if I search Jericho, Liger. It's an amazing podcast kind of thing. Oh, yeah, there he is in his blondness. Just
I'm going to have to Google this too. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so...
Liger.
Super Liger, that was it. I knew there was a bloody name for it. So, yeah. So you can have Super Liger versus Jushin Liger at Wrestle Kingdom. Maybe.
What a bloody career that guy's had. Anyway. Well, he's never faced Chris Jericho then. He's...
Yeah, so you got that possibly to kind of whip out if need be. But of course, they've hinted at Tanahashi versus Jericho, so again, don't get your hopes up. Something like that. But yeah, I feel like it'd be something with a huge amount of respect. I feel like I want to rule out a heel, but then I feel like he'll elevate somebody on his way out, so it can't be a proper main eventer. So that's why I'm thinking Will Ospreay, or I'm thinking Sanada, or Evil, or somebody who will get elevated by the win. Who?
Ishimori,
maybe, if they've got plans for him. Have they got bigger plans for Ishimori or ELP?
Or Dragon Lee, even.
Or Dragon.
That's a face.
Have they got any plans for Dragon Lee, given what's happened with CMLL? If you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because there was a lot of speculation that maybe he would get signed full time with NJPW, given what's happened with CMLL.
Oh, and there's one other name we just keep bloody forgetting: Hiromu Takahashi. Who's like, the word is he's cleared.
Yes, of course. Hiromu Watch.
Yeah. On Super J Cast is like, another disappointing day for Hiromu Watch. One day. But yeah, that is...
A lot of options, I think.
Yeah, essentially. A lot of options. I don't know who they're going to pick. It could be... The thing with New Japan is they've got loads of roads they can go down. It's the same here, as I say, for so many things. And any road they pick, I feel like I'm fine with. Because there's so many that could do so much good, so you just pick one of them and go with it, and that's normally what they do, and it normally pays dividends, so wouldn't be surprised if that's what they go with. Liger putting someone over his way out. The question is, which one of the 20 guys do you elevate?
We just mentioned.
But yeah, that is everything from the press conference, and when we return, we could take a quick ad break, mostly so I can have a cheeky drink of water. I've got a pint of water I kind of need to down. And when we return, we will talk about King of Pro Wrestling, and we will answer all of the questions we got sent to us yesterday when Sam asked for them. So we've got like 8, which is quite a lot for us. So we'll blast through them. Yeah, enjoy your geolocated ads, everyone. See you in about 5 seconds.
How do we control money? Highlighters. Every Sunday, we go over all our statements and we highlight the hotspots.
And that's how we came up with intelligent text alerts that help watch over your money. Our customers give us the best ideas. Huntington, welcome. Message and data rates may apply.
10.
And we're back. I decided to drink my drink really loudly, which means it's going to be great when I try and edit this show and find where the quiet is. On the sound levels, to just go really high with me gulping my water down. So, well done me to make my life difficult. That's all nice and everything. Right, so yesterday I was up really nice and early, and so Sam got back from work and had a lovely time sitting down after his dinner and watching some New Japan at a lovely time. I was Sam on Twitter around that time. You seem to be just tweeting out, you know what, I think one of the reasons I really like New Japan is because I can just sit down at a good time and watch it.
Living over the other side of the world from most of the wrestling that I watch is frustrating at best. So, you know, when you want to watch something like, when you want to watch a WWE or card live, because they do their pay-per-views on Sundays, you've got to take the Monday off work, which is another reason I like AEW, actually, because it's a Saturday pay-per-view, so I get to watch it on Sundays, which is quite nice. But, you know, nothing beats having some dinner, having a beer, sitting down, watching some wrestling. And that's what I get to do with NJPW, and there's no chance I'll get spoiled. You kind of get that live experience.
Like when I knew I had to go onto Twitter and get all the stuff from New Japan Global, I was just like, I'm only 30 minutes into Raw, and I know when I do my columns it's quite nice to not be spoiled, so I get my actual reactions when I see stuff compared to like knowing what's going to happen or surprise or anything. So it's kind of like I'm going in not knowing who gets drafted where, also not really caring because that's not the thing that needs fixing really, but yeah, I don't know anything, so it's a nice surprise for Imp to not know it all. But yeah, I'm in the UK. I just don't, you have to do a full day at work, and when wrestling is hot, that's really difficult. Like a luckily for like in the UK, Game of Thrones, most people wouldn't see it until they got home. It's just like it was really dangerous to go on the internet, and if you're at work you had to go on the internet to do something, or you had to log into emails and things. It's just kind of like, please don't be any spoilers. Please don't be any spoilers. So it's, yeah. Being foreign when there's America like almost owns the media. It's really difficult to just get spoilers like for everything.
Yeah, with Game of Thrones at work, we had to make a pact to not spoil one another and to like collectively choose not to go on the internet and social media for, you know, like the second half of the day.
Or like
so we wouldn't have the episodes spoiled in the final season.
Or like the ultimate extreme that currently happens is not getting the Great British Bake Off spoiled.
Can't have that.
I have to go days without before I can watch it. It's just like, but I've got to go on the internet. Like, oh please, I need to watch it before Thursday when I have no choice to go on. Yeah, I feel like I'm quite lucky. I don't really see many spoilers, and I see it trending. I'm like, oh shit, I've got to be careful. Hopefully nobody I follow is talking about this. Anyway, so King of Pro Wrestling, I nearly said Power Struggle again. I don't know why we're both struggling with that. But King of Pro Wrestling aired yesterday as the first show which really you start looking towards Wrestle Kingdom. Yes, you get your Ibushi crowning at G1 Climax, but you really start to look. You can see it down the road. You can see it. It's in your vision. Wrestle Kingdom is there. And
we're on the road to Wrestle Kingdom.
What number is it? Oh, is it 14?
14.
Oh, that's not. You can't. Like where he goes, WrestleMania 3. It's not the same for WrestleMania 14.
It's like it's too low to be like one of those really significant numbers, but it's too high to be, you know, you feel like a unique number.
Yes.
You know, like once you get to about 20, it's like, wow, it's amazing you've been doing it so long. 14, it's like, you're kind of stuck in the middle right now.
So, yesterday it live from the Ryogoku Kokugigan with a attendance of 9,573 with apparently, according to New Japan, no vacancies, which means it was sold out. So, well done for that. And, of course, that's the day after the typhoon. Well, not the day, a couple of days after the typhoon. So this was a card which was obviously super affected by the typhoon which hit Japan, with obviously loads of people still struggling and really just trying to get by or try and get back together. still, as the show was airing, it was kind of like people were really surprised that the rugby was able to be put on, which was also in Tokyo. The dojo got flooded. The entire bottom floor was like waist-high kind of water, so they're trying to save all the memorabilia, bringing it upstairs. Even ELP kind of used it to say that he'd been humbled by the experience and seen the conduct of people from the past. As soon as he tweeted it, it was like, people are going to get really behind that, because that's actually something which realistically could happen to somebody, to have an experience like that and be like, actually, I feel like I've been a bit of a dick and apologise for his actions. But it's like, but you're ELP. I know what's going to happen here. It
was great. Don't you just love how they were kayfabing that, like, Tanahashi was there with, a bucket and scooping it out with everyone and mucking the place down. You don't get hair like Tanahashi from mucking out and bundling out floodwater.
But the thing that really made me laugh on El Fantasmo's post about it was the most liked comment was somebody just saying, "I hope he immediately kicks him in the balls." He doesn't have Yoshihashi's issue. He's no fear at all in that man. He'll go straight for it.
None at all.
But yeah, so obviously this card was massively affected, and obviously that means there were changes to the card. So Tanahashi was set to face Zack Sabre Jr. for the British Rev Pro Heavyweight Championship. I can't remember who's champion. Is it still? Did Zack get it back, or is Tanahashi still champion?
Zack got it back.
So so that obviously that couldn't take place because Zack couldn't enter the country as champion, and John Moxley also was unable to get there in time because of the typhoon, and that meant that he was vacated. The title was vacated. He was stripped of the United States Championship, and it was for the vacant title. And Lance Archer got his place, 100% deserved. Since his split, just amazing output from that guy. And obviously, this brought up quite a few questions online, especially as it's not sort of thing that happens often, because you need a really unique circumstance for this to happen. But this brings on to our first couple of questions. So, first off, from Ryan Evans, do we think it's harsh for New Japan Pro Wrestling to strip John Moxley of the United States title when his planes delayed? It wasn't his fault. So, I don't know how kind of public this was. I think they brought it up on commentary as well. So, it's kind of good to hear them say this. But this is a rule that does have precedent in New Japan, and within the past 5 years, it's happened twice. It was first Togi Makabe, who lost the Never Openweight Championship when he got the flu and couldn't get to his match. And the second was Matt Sydal, where he got arrested at the airport for having the weed on him. That sounds like a true person who knows that. Yeah, he had the weed on him and got arrested because Japan's really strict with drugs. And yeah, he wasn't able to defend the six-man title, so was stripped of that as well. The rule... It isn't like you have to defend within a time. It seems to be, if they have announced that this title will be defended on the show, then they are getting a title match whether you're there or not. Seems to be how it works in New Japan. So, because Togi Makabe got the flu and couldn't make it, the Never Openweight Championship was still defended. It just wasn't done so with him there. Same with John Moxley. He couldn't get there because, of course, a typhoon stopped his plane from arriving. But it's kind of like, for the reasons to lose your title, that's like 100% out of your hands. There's nothing you can do about that. And John Moxley loses the title. And Juice doesn't even win. Damn it, spoilers for later. But yeah, so is it harsh? It's kind of like, well, the rule is very black and white. If the match is advertised and you can't make the card, the match goes ahead with or without you. Sometimes that'll come across as really harsh. And it's not just a rule seen in New Japan. TNA, the other example, because Doug Williams himself tweeted about it as a reminder to people, and I was just like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But he was X Division champion when the ash cloud went over Europe, when all the WWE stars themselves got grounded and they had to do a makeshift show on the Night Raw. Doug Williams got grounded in the UK and couldn't fly to do the TNA pay-per-view, but the X Division championship had been announced, so because of the ash cloud, he got stripped of his title and it was defended by two different people. So it's not without precedent, this rule. In terms of Zack Sabre Jr., the reason he wasn't stripped is because that's not a New Japan title. That is a Rev Pro Championship. It's an outside title. So, for example, if the Ring of Honor World Championship was to be defended and then one of them couldn't make it, they wouldn't strip the Ring of Honor Championship. It's a different company. So that's why he is personally fine. But do you think it's harsh, Sam?
I think the perfect term for it is harsh but fair. Like, it is harsh, yeah. He didn't have any control of the weather. As much as, some of these conspiracy theorists are like, I don't know. I don't know if they think AEW has, like, extra strings, Maybe they've got enough clout to get Dave Meltzer to hold on to a story and not release it. But they're not booking the weather. Tony Khan doesn't have that much money. And it's it's harsh but fair. All I want in these sorts of situations is consistency. I'm trying not to talk about the WWE. I'm trying not to engage in that way because I'm not watching it at the moment. But I don't know, the thing that I always think of when I see these situations is when Naomi got stripped just before WrestleMania 30. I want to say 33. Was it? Yeah, 33.
That's the one where she won it back
in Florida.
Yeah,
and she got stripped because of because she wasn't going to be able to. It's not. She didn't even get 30 days to hold it. She wasn't going to be able to defend it within 30 days, according to the doctors. And so they stripped her of it. And meanwhile, on the other brand, Brock Lesnar had been, at different points up to 90 days, 100+ days without doing a defense, and they weren't enforcing this weird 30-day rule that they suddenly pulled out of their ass. I just want consistency. And yeah, this is harsh. Yeah, it sucks that Moxley's not the US champ anymore. But, fair. It's got to be fair. And to be honest, I think it's actually a good thing they did it because he hasn't defended it much. And that championship is one that desperately needs to be relevant. And putting it on Moxley could have potentially made it more relevant, but because if he can't defend it, and he couldn't defend it in the States because of his contract with AEW, and if he can't now defend it in Japan, it's got to go on to someone. And yeah, it sucks, it's harsh, but it's consistent and it's fair, and probably long term it's probably the best thing for the actual title itself as well.
And the follow-up question, which comes from Ray Cash over on Chair Shot Radio, my guest from a couple of weeks ago. So why didn't they strip Chris Jericho of the IC title last year then?
Because he didn't miss an advertised date.
It's very neat. It's not a unique. So so I was talking about the US title where they want it to be relevant. Obviously, that adds to it, but that's not the reason he was stripped. Obviously, as we're saying, it's the rule, the very niche rule of
that's the kayfabe backstage. That's the backstage thoughts. The kayfabe reason, the reason presented in story and in the rules is that it was because he couldn't make a scheduled defense.
Yeah.
Chris Jericho had made all of his scheduled defenses. Yeah, he didn't do the G1. And yeah, he didn't have as many defenses as sometimes championships do. But you know what? Hiromu got given 6 months to try and defend his title before he was stripped. But he didn't miss any at that time. He didn't miss any advertised dates, so they didn't strip him yet. So that's what happened with Chris Jericho. It's
pretty self-explanatory kind of thing. The issue when we do talk about WWE is because their rules aren't consistent.
Yeah,
as I just proved with Naomi and Brock Lesnar, where that is not to do with kind of this kind of thing. Like, obviously, this niche rule is if you're advertised for it and then you can't make it, that's when you get stripped of it. Like, if Jericho was advertised for his match against Naito and then didn't make the match, he probably would have got stripped.
Yeah, and don't at me in Twitter. I'm not stupid. I know why the WWE stripped Naomi and didn't strip Brock Lesnar. I'm not an idiot. But I don't care about the business reasons, quite frankly. I just want consistency in the presentation of what I'm being presented. And if they're going to say if you can't make an advertised date, and then you get stripped, then that's what I want to see. And if someone goes a little while but doesn't have any advertised dates, then they shouldn't be stripped.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of consistency. What have you set precedent for? And there's precedent for this, even though it's rare. And
look, if the IWGP booking committee doesn't book you in matches,
yeah. And before we jump in as well, it was kind of related a little bit in terms of like the Moxley situation, and I guess with Jericho in a way. Would we both like New Japan Pro Wrestling to have a working relationship with AEW? And to carry on from that as well, do we think Kenny Omega will return to New Japan at some point?
I'll let you take that one first if you like him.
For me, it's once AEW has found their feet, why not? Obviously, I don't know because the talks, apparently the word was they weren't great all the way back in January last year, where they were talking about AEW. They'd just done the reveal for them. It's still weird to think 10 months ago was the first time this was even mentioned, and they're already getting the amount of views they are. It's like such a short amount of time this is properly blown up. But yeah, once AEW's found their feet, however long that takes, because they're definitely still in that phase, it might take a full year before that's even the case. But once they have, why not kind of being a bit more open to have working relationships? They've shown already that they're perfectly happy to be a lot more open and let their wrestlers do a bit more few indie dates and things, kind of elevate the indie world around them as a thank you, I guess, as well, because the Young Bucks, they thrived on that world, and they're only here today because of the indie scene, so they're kind of giving back, saying thank you. So it wouldn't surprise me if AEW down the road would be totally open to it. Then it depends on New Japan, because of course if it didn't go well, why didn't it go well, and that might hinder it. But in terms of would I like it? Yeah, sure. Once AEW find their feet, why not? Same with Omega. Once AEW found its feet, why not?
Yeah, it sort of depends how you define a relationship, like a working relationship, because, so for instance, I don't like both of these companies. I think they're too big to put on a joint show. Neither of those guys is going to want to be the little brother, so to speak. Like when New Japan and Ring of Honor put on a combined show, there's no question as to which championship goes on last. Of course, the New Japan one goes on last, but they had a symbiotic relationship in that Ring of Honor actually helped New Japan with their American expansion by providing like a ring crew and a camera crew, because quite frankly the expansion, since they haven't involved Ring of Honor, the production has been really disastrous and really terrible, and I have to put my hand up and say I have to take an L on this one, in that I said that New Japan didn't need Ring of Honor. They actually did, but for different reasons. And Ring of Honor then got to use New Japan stars in return, got to use New Japan stars to draw massive crowds. Like they got to use Kenny Omega. They got to have Ishii. They got to have Juice Robinson. They got to, use that clout that those guys have for their own devices. So it was kind of, both of them got different benefits. But with AEW and New Japan, I can't see them putting on big shows together. And quite frankly, I don't really want to see too much mingling between them, because they are two giant companies that have their own interesting stories. But I would love to see, I think cooperation is really important and will ultimately be the benefit of everything. Wrestlers going in between the promotions potentially. It would be awesome to see Kenny Omega in New Japan again. He was awesome in New Japan. It was great to have him there. I think there's no one who watches wrestling that doesn't want to see Kota Ibushi versus Kenny Omega at a big show sometime. Or Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada #5. That's ready. It's right there. John Moxley's was fantastic in the G1. He was one of our MVPs when we did that big list, and added up those points. I'd love to see that, but I don't know the business side of these things. I'm not in on the like I'm not an insider or anything. But I just think when you look at those two, neither of them would want to be the little brother in that relationship. Both of them want to be the big brother. And when it comes down to the brass tacks, and they've got a super show at MSG, which championship goes on last? That's the kind of fight that could end the relationship, because there's no way that New Japan would want the IWGP Championship going on before, and there's no way AEW would want the IWGP Championship. The AEW Championship going on before either. Yeah. I think so that's where I stand with it.
In terms of philosophies within the different countries, in the 90s when the wrestling was booming in Japan, you did get super shows between All Japan Pro Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling, or the one War, I guess, with Chris Jericho, who obviously he wasn't the star of War, but I'm just forgetting everyone aside from Chris Jericho. War was there as well, and the one Onita was in, the hardcore one, who a name also is leaving me. But the massive promotions, they did work together. You did get super shows. So whilst in the 90s in America, Like, no. If you mention them, it was because you're insulting them, kind of thing. Like, it's full-on competition kind of a world. Like, the two different promotions, the two different wrestling worlds in the 90s were so different in that way. Like, you would never think of WCW and WWE ever working together. Like, you would never think... Like, it was like they were both trying to put each other out of business. Whereas in Japan, the wrestling world was booming. Let's work together and sell out a massive show. Like, for the wrestling business, it's no question which one was better for it. It's just... It's very different. So I wouldn't think New Japan would be that against it as we think we would. It's just, how did the talks go, in a way? I'm not saying...
Yeah, and it could be a cultural thing as well. Like, I don't know, Australia is more of an American culture, and that sort of tribalism and that us against them in business is certainly very much part of this American culture. But, like... How awesome would it have been a couple of WrestleManias ago when the Shield was running, if they'd gone against the Elite? Like, what an amazing match that would have been. And, who cares who wins? And as Chris Jericho, I think last year, he wanted to do an Intercontinental champion versus Intercontinental Championship match at SummerSlam. And, like, who cares who wins? Do a double count out. It's just going to be fun to have it there, but... I don't know. I feel like the cultural differences and the attitudes of the people behind it just wouldn't allow, high level cooperation between AEW and WWE at least, and even, like AEW and NJPW are going for very similar crowds in the West at least.
And the final question before we get on with the King of Pro Wrestling card, which we might have to blast through quicker than expected, even though that's the title of this show. Final question of this little area. Do we think New Japan Pro Wrestling should break their partnership with Ring of Honor? RH are struggling to sell shows, and I wasn't impressed with what they showed at G1 Supercard. I feel when Ring of Honor top talent contract expires, they'll probably go to one of the big three companies in wrestling in WWE, AEW or New Japan. Quite a loaded question of trying to figure out what to actually say for that one. SirSam's given us permission to go on a bit longer. He'll sleep when he's dead.
I didn't want to say it on air, but
it made me laugh when I saw it. But yeah, so do I think New Japan should break their partnership with Ring of Honor? Well, because SirSam accidentally addressed that pretty head on. We didn't think that Ring of Honor... We didn't think that New Japan needed Ring of Honor. Then we saw their production. And we've also seen what's happened to Ring of Honor without the New Japan stars. Both of them are now in a worse place when they're putting on shows in America. It's not even in question that partnership definitely helped both of them. However, if New Japan did strike up a deal with someone like AEW, it's not even close in terms of which partnership would be better. In terms of getting exposure for New Japan Pro Wrestling in America, and in terms of the production they could put on, AEW would blast ROH out of the water. It wouldn't even be close. But that's not on the cards. And I guess the other one getting the talks is Impact, as in Impact are slowly climbing the list, and now New Japan and Impact are both going to be on AXS TV in America. So that's quite a big shift in terms of relationship. Obviously, New Japan and when they were called TNA, their relationship did not end well. And one of the big things is them still being really pissed off on how they handled Okada, where they sent him out on an excursion and then just turned him into essentially the guy from Green Lantern, which was weird. Just to put it kindly, it was weird. So yeah, they've not really forgiven them for that, but it's a completely different promotion at that point. Nobody is really there who was there at that time, so maybe it could work out in that way. But yeah, it does a New Japan with Ring of Honor. I don't know if they should break it because they still kind of benefit from each other. But that said, Ring of Honor, in terms of the perception of their promotion, they are not in a good place. They are 100% struggling to sell shows. They brought down G1 Supercard. If I was New Japan, I probably wouldn't be happy, because they brought down the overall perception of the show. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Sam?
And that's what I after the G1 Supercard, I wrote in as part of my WrestleMania weekend wrap-up column that NJPW should run from ROH because of the way that they brought down that card, particularly with the allure, the beautiful people little bit.
Oh, yeah.
The way that they booked the Rumble at the start, and then also particularly the Enzo and Cass stuff, which just really took the air out of the crowd. But that said, as we've now seen, the effect that Ring of Honor were having was potentially underappreciated. We didn't really know how good it was until it was gone, and then we're dealing with these really, really rough production issues that previously weren't a problem because they had a seasoned camera, I guess, seasoned production unit that could come along and put these shows on, and get them up, stream them live, have them up within really good time, not miss shots, not look like a really low budget indie, and actually look like a high quality in-ring product, which is what New Japan is. It's still, I think, the best pure wrestling company in the world, and the way that they produce it when they're at home in Japan is a big part of that. And they haven't been able to replicate that internationally, and I think part of that is because they didn't have that crew that is used to shooting wrestling, which is the Ring of Honor crew. So I don't know, maybe there's a different way that they could structure the relationship where they're not necessarily getting so involved in the ring, and getting involved in, the problems that Ring of Honor is having, or maybe Impact is the answer. I don't really know. I'm not a business expert, but it's clear that they need some help with production. And if either of those companies is willing to do that, if it means that they send some wrestlers their way to help draw some houses, happy days. New Japan's got a lot of really good wrestlers that would be able to do that.
Yeah. So, there you go. Elaborate answers where both of us were like, I don't know. Maybe. But now, 1.5 hours into the show, we get round to talking finally about King of Pro Wrestling, whose name I nearly forgot again. I wrote a column. I wrote 3,000 words on it yesterday. Still can't remember its name. Tweeted it out, everything. Put it on Reddit. Oh, I still didn't remember his name. So, our first contest was the Roppongi 3K versus El Desperado versus Kanemaru and El Desperado in El Desperado's return. He was wearing the very shirt that he stained with his blood with his injury way back when, and he comes back to the ring and completely owns it. It's kind of, when I seen it, I was like, I don't know, I might actually keep the shirt. It looks cool. I mean, we'll get to a point where they'll probably have to wash it, but still, yeah, it's pretty cool. So coming out with the bloodstained shirt, he feels like a badass. But yeah, this was all about Desperado's return and kind of got that over. It's a perfectly fine 10-minute opener. What did you think of it, Sam?
Honestly, I was cooking dinner while this was going on. Well, I knew it was Roppongi 3K and Kanemaru Desperado. I was like, this will be a good match. These guys aren't going to have a bad match together, but it's not going to be anything I haven't seen before. So I'll half pay attention and while I cook dinner and settle in for the night. It was what I saw was really good. These guys just know each other back to front, and know how to have a great match together. And yeah, it was good to see El Desperado come back and get the win. Kind of a nice little well-deserved thing and a nice little warm-up for the World Tag League.
Yeah, I feel like that's the bigger important one, was the commentators will be able to talk about the World Tag League, the Super J Tag League, whilst this match is happening, so it gets that over, gets that across, gets people informed that tournament is happening. It served its purpose, and we got El Desperado back, as I said, with his cool blood-stained shirt.
Yep.
Not really much to talk about. SirSam was cooking dinner, and I used this match to organise my column, as we get all the sections ready for all the matches in. Because of course, all the matches got changed because of the tsunami, so I had to filter it all, change it all out. So yeah. Speaking of matches that were changed because of tsunami, we got our first card change with Tanahashi now teaming up with Tomoaki Honma versus Toru Yano and Togi Makabe, the Great Bash Heel special with Tanahashi also there. But the commentators really spent a lot of this match doing their best to tell you why you should care about what is happening in the ring, and they did a really good job. Kevin Kelly absolutely aced it in just giving you the history of all these people and the relationships to each other, informing everyone about Great Bash Heel and how big they were in New Japan about 10 years ago, why this is a momentous match, even though it was last minute and it's come out of nowhere and you feel like you shouldn't care about it. This really, we've had 2 weeks in a row. We had a show which was massively booked last minute. One because of something they couldn't. I can't speak. One because of something completely out of their control, and one because of their own. Just they didn't book it. The kind of thing in America with WWE. Both cards had loads of matches put on last minute. However, one actually put in effort to tell you why you should care about why these people are facing each other, rather than it would be a good match. Weirdly, actually, the second match on both cards did a really good job. Like in America, you got Orton versus Ali. Suddenly, things from the past becoming relevant. Same here. This is much further in the past. I'm talking like a decade, but it's a similar thing. The second match actually aced the last-minute booking and just put in a match with two people who do have a relationship. So, Great Bash heel with their workings in that way, and of course it's weird. The whole point of getting across is Honma normally teams with the other two, but in this one he's teaming with Tanahashi, and all four men have a history between each other. So it was quite a... Yeah, it was one of those matches which is perfectly fine for a last-minute replacement. Oh, and there was somebody who came up on ringside as well, whose name I've forgotten. When I saw him, I was like, oh, you're that guy I've seen you wrestling when I've gone back to watch older New Japan stuff, and they said his name and I've completely forgotten who he is. So that's great. Yeah.
I can't help you. I'm sorry. With that one, I didn't recognise him. But I did learn something. I learned that Togi Makabe used to be a junior. Wow. That's... a few beers and steaks later. These guys could do it in their sleep, like the way that they were going. It was, not that it was terrible. It's just they're so experienced and so good at what they do. I loved the little Kokeshi spots where Tanahashi was doing the Kokeshi with Honma. That was fantastic. And isn't it good? I mean, we had a chat about Honma after his first match back at the G1 last year, the G1 finals, and both of us were like, is this dude all right? Like, should he really be in there? Like, it's nice, but and it's so good to see he does seem quite healthy. He still looks very stiff, but he's got some fluidity to him, and he's just a really good. I really liked one of his matches in the New Japan Cup earlier this year. That he had, I think against Taichi. Just a fantastic little an example of what Honma Mania was like, I guess, with him being just this underdog fighting from underneath. And Tanahashi hit a killer sling blade on Yano. No one hits the sling blade like Tanahashi. No one gets like the impact. I see when like Finn Balor and Seth Rollins do it, and I love both of those guys as wrestlers. They kind of float and they pretty much like just jump past them and the other guys fall down, whereas Tanahashi really like rips them down, and I love the look of Tanahashi's sling blade. And also props to Gino on commentary when he goes, when he said to Kevin, Kevin, when you hit your 20th anniversary, I hope you open the ropes for me. After Tanahashi opened the ropes for Honma on the way out.
So when I first started watching New Japan, Tomoaki Honma was my favourite, and he was so over, and he was kind of the person where you looked.
Love him.
Yeah, he just kind of, he's one of those people where everyone talks at him as the most over person not getting a push in New Japan.
Yep.
And when he got featured at Wrestle Kingdom, it wasn't in a major deal, but it felt like a good thing for him. But he was so incredibly over in like 2014, and then of course he just kind of started to drift into New Japan Dad territory with Togi Makabe and the rest of the Great Bash heel guys, and then he got the really bad injury, and it's a miracle he's even wrestling now. But he was so over at one point. So I've got that emotional attachment to him. Because when I was watching him, when he was in the G1 Climax, every one of his matches was that kind of underdog guy who never hit the Kakashi from the top rope. He just always missed. Because he falls.
I've got to chase up more Honma matches, because I really do like him. Although I'm disappointed he's not wearing that little head gimmick thing he had, where it allowed Kevin to go, "It's Honma."
Like, oh hey. It's Honma. And Bucky Mo's like, "Oh wow! Oh, how awesome's that? Honma's it."
How does he do it every time?
That was. But highly recommend checking out his run in the G1 Climax of 2014, because that's when I became a fan of him, so obviously he was doing something right. But maybe it was just the fact it was this guy. Well, Kakashi's kind of funny to watch. Where they're like, oh, that's a fun move. And the fact that he never hits it off the top rope because it's so slow from such a distance. But when he eventually hits it, you're like, hey, he might actually win this time. Oh, yeah.
And I can't have been the only person that was waiting for Jericho at the end of this one to just come in and, come in and Judas affect Tanahashi and Honma.
There was thinkings of it, but then as soon as Moxley couldn't make it because of the typhoon, it was like, well, I don't like Jericho's chances. They were both on the same AEW show. And Jericho's obviously going around doing press for AEW, so he would have had to fly in as well. So I didn't like his chances, but yeah. Next up, we got our first bump in the road to the Tokyo Dome with Doki taking a pinfall from Shingo Takagi.
Who would have ever predicted against these three?
Yeah, one of these men is not like the others. In Tetsuya Naito and Shingo Takagi representing Los Ingobernables de Japón versus Suzuki Guns, Taichi and Doki. And the road to the Tokyo Dome took a little bit of a bump, and Takagi did get the win. We will still hold our hopes, Sam. It can still happen. But apparently,
we're laughing about it, but he held his own. Like I loved his interactions with Naito and Shingo. He plays like this guy who's unafraid, knows he's outmatched, but is unafraid, and then just cheats to. But in a way that doesn't feel slimy. Well, actually, no, slimy. In a way that doesn't feel sort of cheap. It's like, well, this is what this guy has to do to keep up.
Yeah, and he actually in the tag world, Doki actually fit pretty well. Like when he's with somebody else who can also be very. Well, plus he got Taichi, who's the super charismatic one, so he can add that whilst Doki can't really be super charismatic. It works really well with that kind of. They can play off each other in that way. It's just when we had to watch Doki in singles matches in the junior, but Super Juniors. That's when it was kind of like, right, Doki's not really impressive. But in the tag world, I think he could be fine if they want to book him a bit more. He was another last minute replacement for the card getting shuffled about because Lance Archer was shifted to the US match. But yeah, he held his own to say he was last minute. Yeah.
I really liked Shingo in this match as well. It's kind of, I love him as a heavyweight, but it's a shame he's not against juniors anymore because he's so good against people that are smaller than him, just as this indomitable bruiser, and just this absolute badass dude. And that's sort of what he plays against heavyweights, but against juniors where he's got that size on his side as well and he can just ragdoll them when he needs to, it was cool to see that again when he was interacting with Doki. And obviously Naito and Taichi, I kind of mentioned earlier in the show how I love the way that these two play off one another, just with their mind games and their just douchebaggery all round.
Yeah. And this takes us to the next match, as I've got to swiftly move through. We're only halfway through this card. And we've got more questions. We got to the highly anticipated bout of, on his retirement tour, Jushin Thunder Liger, or Battle Liger, as we got, versus Minoru Suzuki, with Minoru Suzuki winning in 17.5 minutes after Jushin Thunder Liger his body just gave up underneath him. And as soon as I was watching it, I was like, wow, it's like they've, in the match, given you proof of there is a reason he's retiring. It's just kind of like he just couldn't keep up with Suzuki. And they did have like an almost 18-minute match, so it wasn't like a short 10-minute burst from a veteran. It was like, no, they had a proper match, and in the end, when they were just exchanging strikes and taking each other down, Liger just didn't have enough. His body just gave up underneath him, and I really liked that. It was a little... This match was full of little details that I really liked, even though it wasn't the blood feud, the violent brawl some were predicting. It's like, no, it was still a match full of really good little bits that really added to it, and lots of people rated this match really highly. Yeah, so in regardless of the fact it wasn't a violent brawl, they still rated it really highly. So what did you think of this one?
Yeah, well, it wasn't what a lot of people thought it would be because, their interactions leading up to this have been so intense. But it still seemed to fit in a weird way in that they want to ultimately, this all started because they wanted to prove who was better. and which one of those guys was the better man, and that's what they ended up doing. They wanted to grapple early, to prove their superiority down there, and I don't think it wasn't like what I'd call like a traditional. Well, traditional's probably not a great word for it, but it wasn't your classic Suzuki where there's a lot of exchanges with the forearms until really later into it. It felt like probably 2/3 of the match before they had any forearm exchanges, and Suzuki was just the perfect opponent for Liger in this sort of match, in that Liger was so game and so up for it and had so much fight in him, but ultimately he just couldn't match it with this guy who was more skillful and just ruthless in the way that he executed things. And I just remember there was one moment after Minoru Suzuki had beaten down Liger with forearms where he just screamed to the crowd, and it just felt like such a perfect moment for the match, with Liger sort of trying to fight his way into it, but Suzuki just screaming with so much power and so much going for him in the match. And then, of course, the ending was just incredible.
And before we get to the ending, I'd say Jesus is Liger ripped for 54.
Hell yeah!
Amazing shape.
He looks worse. It's weird. The suit makes him look worse than he is. Like, the suit makes him look like he's trying to hide some, a few extra cakes and beers, but he's jacked.
Yeah. Well, so I'm sitting here with my no pack stomach, just like, he's 54. He's in a much better shape than me. But yeah, in terms of like the actual ending as well. With Liger kind of just falling and collapsing, and Suzuki using that to take advantage and eventually hit the Gotch style pile driver. Yeah, it was a really fitting ending in a way. Right? It's one of those where when it started to happen, you were like, oh, Liger's not going to win. Oh, that's sad. But then when it happened, it was like, actually, you know what? It's quite cathartic. I quite liked it. It works really well.
And man, the way these two communicate, you can tell these guys are just such awesome veterans. The way they communicate emotion with their body language, like every little grin and smirk and lick of his chops from Suzuki, and Liger's body language is off the charts as well in terms of the way he just either gets beaten down and sells that and then fights back into the match and shows the fire from within, even though he's got his face covered. This was just a masterclass in that sort of thing. And then I'll let you continue on with the ending.
So after that, we had the surprise moment of Suzuki getting down on his knees and bowing to Jushin Liger in a massive show of respect. Like, as Sam was just saying, in terms of conveying their emotions with their body language, he didn't say a word to Suzuki. He just bowed down and paid respect to a Liger who himself was on the ground after taking a pile driver. But yeah, Suzuki, and it's the fact it was Suzuki who did it as well. Like, even like nobody in the crowd expected it, even though like this is Suzuki's last match against Liger, likely, and it was in like Liger's last match in the Ryogoku Kabukigan, and Suzuki, no one expected him to pay that amount of respect to him. It's just kind of like no, it's the ultimate respect paid by Suzuki before he rolls out, and then that kind of brought all the emotion out of the crowd, who then were clapping and chanting. People were crying in the crowd as they chanting like Liger, Liger. It was an awesome atmosphere just to suddenly feel, and it was one of those where as soon as that happened, I was like, I feel sorry for whoever's got to follow this.
Oh my gosh, yes, and you could see, like, I was talking about body language and stuff. You could see on Suzuki's face when he got the win how he went for the chair, but then you could see him change his mind in the middle of that and throw away the chair and then bow down. And the thing that New Japan just does so well, and the thing that makes these moments so impactful, is just consistency of character. Like, Suzuki has been this guy for so long, who gives nothing and who gives nothing and will take it all from you he gives nothing and doesn't expect it back, and he will hit you as hard as he can, and he's just a brute and a psychopath, and he's cold and he's calculating, and in many ways he's remorseless. And if he hadn't always been like that, this moment where he respects his his opposition has fought so well that it's earned this almost serial killer's respect. It wouldn't have anywhere near the impact if he hadn't always been that character. And this reminded me so much of when Farley bows to Blue Justice. No.
I mean, yeah,
Blue
Justice. I was just like,
blanking at the end of the G1, and it's the most incredible moment because of who Farley is.
Yeah.
They're both these guys are not good dudes. They're guys you wouldn't want to see in a dark alley. But even these guys, they acknowledge the fight of their rival, and they respect that ultimately in the end. And that's what was so magical about this. You had Suzuki bowing to Liger and ultimately saying, I've got the utmost respect for you.
I was just sat here like, yeah, I know Eugene Nagata's name. I'm just going to let SirSam struggle.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, I think that's in the same building as well, actually.
Really?
Yeah,
there you go.
Well, it gives
nice.
Such a great atmosphere as well, just because you're right on top of the action because it's a sumo hall, essentially.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Who's going to be the one that does that for Tanahashi, in 30 years' time?
Nakamura.
Jay White?
Oh, of course, yeah, because it wouldn't. I was going to say Nakamura, but then Nakamura might just be there.
Wow. Yeah.
Because they're both going to be quite old. I think they're both getting on a bit now. Of course, Nakamura's decided to go to America and chill out surfing and take the money. And it's one of the things where I worded that as a negative, but I don't mean it like that at all. Like, if I was in my 40s and
good for him.
Yeah, like he's reached the peak of New Japan and gone to America and it's like, you know what, I'm going to take the money for these last few years and just have a nice time surfing. It's like, good for you, Shinsuke.
Yeah, take all the money you can get off Vince McMahon, Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah.
Rip as much as you can get, every dime.
So, next up, we had the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Will Ospreay defending against El Phantasmo. The match over here in the UK we've seen lots of times, especially in Rev Pro. And now we're starting to see their feuds flow over into New Japan. We've lost the likes of Marty Scurll with the Ospreay Marty Scurll classics. Now we're getting Ospreay Phantasmo classics. And the most important part of this match, Elevate's back. We've got the Will Ospreay's theme is back. So no more the music cut off due to copyright. The biggest heel in New Japan can't get his moment.
His alternative music's pretty damn good. It's not elevated. I'm not saying that, but his alternative music was pretty decent.
I've got a little pet peeve when you can just tell we can't hear the crowd because I feel like when you have a bad sound editing or it's blatantly a dub. It's like WWE Network is awful for that. Where even where they have to pay the rights for something like the 3-minute warning song, like they don't even pay the rights for that, and it just obviously something a bit more blatant like Voodoo Child. It's like, okay, that would have cost you a lot to get the rights to that one, but the 3-minute warning song, like really, you can't be bothered to get that one either. It takes the atmosphere out of it for me. Like whenever you watch one of those older shows and it's just not got the music rights for it. New Japan's kind of way of getting around that was to cut them out entirely. Because it would just be like a full 5 minutes of silence whilst people make their entrance to the songs. Just cut them out, that's how New Japan kind of works. Just get to the wrestling kind of thing. It's a pet peeve. Don't like it when I can hear the sound is blatantly fake. That's the worst one actually. I prefer no crowd to fake crowd, and it makes watching old SmackDown really difficult. Because, of course, all the way until SmackDown went live, they did do the fake crowd reactions to everything. And watching it now is like, oh, holy crap, this is dated. Like, it feels so bad. You forget how lucky you've got it now with everything being live. But SmackDown tapes, WWE couldn't help themselves, just pipe in the fake crowd. And it's so blatant, it takes so much away from the reactions they're meant to be getting and everything when I go back and watch it. I know not most people feel that way, but it's a massive pet peeve of mine. Just to...
It's one of those glass shattering things where you once you notice it, you can't not notice it, and it becomes very frustrating.
Especially
I had that a little while ago. Someone pointed out Michael Cole calling something the drop zone every single time they did a top rope move, and once someone pointed that out to me, I was hearing it all the time, and it was just very frustrating.
It's like when you realise the third-person commentator in WWE, like the one that Renee Young had, and now that Dia Madden's taken over on Raw, where it's just their job to go, oh, that's it, pretty much. And then whenever they pipe up, it gets reaction out of me now because I hear it like, oh. Last point on Raw before we move on. I will just say that because I'm 30 minutes into Raw at the moment, the biggest pop of the night for me was when they showed the executives, and I was like, oh, you absolute boys. Yes, the same people. Pretty certain it's the exact same shots for some of them. It's like, oh, yes, they brought all of them, those absolute stars. Like, yes. My favourite thing from the week was those executives. I hope they stay around. Because
I have no idea what you're talking about here because I don't watch WWE anymore. Didn't you read my column?
Yeah,
I can't watch it anymore. I can't watch it.
But they brought in actors that were so blatantly not business people, or just random people from the street, and they said do business things, and it was absolutely hilarious.
Were they repeating the same shots? Just repeating the same shots wholesale. That would have been hilarious.
It was like they were told, right, we're going to cut to you now. Do business things, and like two of my favourite guys. One of them was a guy who was looking towards his laptop and making notes as the screensaver of a peacock played by. It was like the way I phrased it in my column was it was like a radical idea from a mental facility. Let's just let them act out being business things. Oh, it's my favourite thing. Massive tangent from New Japan, but it was so my favourite thing. I loved it so much.
Actually, a mental facility might be the best way to describe WWE at the moment. Anyway, moving on. Will Ospreay and El Phantasmo.
Yeah. Well, you've got to be a little bit mental to do what El Phantasmo tried to do in this match.
My gosh.
So, first off, they played really nicely off ELP's tweet, where it's just like, I feel like I've been humbled by this experience of the dojo getting flooded and being there with the people. Cars outside were submerged. It was that high, the water. It's just kind of like I feel like I've not been respectful to the position of the people who are in the place I'm in now, the champions of the junior heavyweight world in the past, and everybody immediately is just like, yeah, you're going to do something, aren't you? You won't be respectful. We know.
You know what this reminded me of? And you're a teacher, so you'll probably appreciate this. This reminded me of when, the bad guy in the class starts making a big deal of doing everything right, and he's just doing it to stir everything up. And it's like, yes, miss, I'm going to do that now, miss. Shut up, Jason. Shut up, Jason. Miss, he's being really... What can I do now? And just... They're doing everything right, but making a big deal of doing everything right. And it's just all part of an act. And Will Ospreay could see straight through that. He's like, no, this guy's going to screw me over at some point. He's still a dickhead. He's just playing within the rules, but doing it to try and get a rise out of me now. And that's what it reminded me of. It was such great... it felt so relatable to things I've seen before. And it was just so good just waiting for that, when's he going to do it? When's he going to do it? When's he going to do it?
And obviously he did where Ospreay was down, I didn't mean to hit you in the eye, it was an accident. He's been respectful up to that point, and then with his arm behind him, he's this is where he's reaching the peak of sportsmanship. This is it. And obviously, he immediately attacks him. Ospreay doesn't take it well. Then Ospreay launches ELP at ringside into Gino, who was on commentary, with Gino going, "Where's my ice pack, Kevin?"
That was brilliant. Did you see Gino's tweets later?
No, I didn't know.
Oh, Gino, I love Gino. I follow him on Twitter. He had a thing out to the Australian police, the Australian Federal Police, saying, are you going to investigate an Australian who was assaulted abroad?
Oh, that's great. It was the entire time, it's just I've not done anything. I didn't move. You threw him into me. What do you think? So, it was... Yeah, and I love that.
But man, these two are so good in the ring. You can just tell the chemistry of these two is insane. They know each other's movements before the other one does it, and they're just when they were doing those kick exchanges and the suplex exchanges were so crisp and so smooth. And this was very much like a classic Will Ospreay sort of match where it's just so fast and so fast paced and so hard hitting. But El Phantasmo was more than up for the challenge with that, and you could tell that these guys are well and truly have wrestled before and know one another's games.
The way that I kind of phrased it in the column was maybe the only reason Phantasmo didn't win was because he was possibly too desperate to actually win, and he was going for too big of a thing, whilst Ospreay was just smartly wrestling his game. We had the ringside brawl as well, where El Phantasmo jumped off of the entranceway onto, or the unused entranceway onto Will Ospreay.
That was insane.
Like an absolute madman. But because we watch New Japan, we know an actual madman would have moonsaulted that sumbitch, just like Ibushi does. So, Phantasmo, he isn't that mad. He faces them, he aims it correctly, he goes for it. So yeah. But it was like,
and he's so over with the crowd as well. El Phantasmo.
Like, he's such a dick, but he does it in such a great way. Like, it's one of those where you kind of chuckle at him and go, "Oh, he's such a dick." So it works really, really well. But of course, it hurtled towards the ending after we had Ishimori breaking up a pin. This is because they did that massive spot in the crowd, and then we got that fluid wrestling Sam was talking about, and it's just like, oh, these guys are so crisp together. Then
flips on flips on flips.
Yeah, and I think I was just like, yep, cue all the flips and the fancy wrestling. We're into the junior portion of this match now. And Ospreay seemed to get the upper hand when Ishimori came down. It's just like, in terms of the sportsmanship totally being out of the water, the next thing was Ishimori interfering and pulling out the ref. Out comes Australia's favourite son, Robbie Eagles, who comes running down to the ring and saves Ospreay, gets rid of Ishimori. But, of course, the distraction's already worked, and El Phantasmo gets to hit all the moves on Ospreay. But as I was saying, he was possibly too desperate. Instead of just putting the match away, he decided to pull out all the Bullet Club finishes. So he hit the AJ Styles, he tried to go for the One-Winged Angel, and Ospreay just caught onto it and fought away from it. And again, to end the match, he didn't go for a move he knows would do the damage to put him away. He goes for the top rope Frankensteiner. It's like he has to hit the big move, not just a move he knows will do the damage, and that's what costs him, because he goes for the top rope Frankensteiner, and Will Ospreay sends him crashing into the mat with a power bomb that nearly put him through the damn thing. It's one of the, sometimes where you just hear the impact from a move and you just sat there just going, "Oof, Jesus Christ!" That was hit down with force. Then he hits the hidden blade, which just looks so damn vicious as a move.
Yeah.
It's one of those moves where it's like, you don't even need to hit the Stormbreaker here. He's out. He's done. But he does anyway, and that gets the win. But yeah, for me, it felt like the story was ELP was doing all the things correctly, but he was just too desperate rather than putting him away in a clever way like Will Ospreay was. Will Ospreay just went to his moves and hit them, and that was that. But it pays Will Ospreay as an awesome champion as well in the process.
See, Sorry, you go.
Oh, no, I was pretty much done.
Oh, okay. What I was going to say is I really liked the run-in because it kind of built off how El Phantasmo won the Super J Cup. But this time Robbie Eagles was there, so it's like they've learnt from that, and Robbie Eagles was there to make the save. But I felt like after that it went on a little bit too long, this match. There was all the El Phantasmo stuff, but then Will Ospreay, he had to do all of the moves that he does. And there was a lot of lying around, and I felt like the energy in the building was just peaking at that point. And once they did that, if Will Ospreay had hit, the hook kick, hit the Os Cutter, hit the hidden blade, Stormbreaker, and then it's over, it would have been a little bit more tidy. I don't know, this tried to be really epic, and I think that sort of let itself down in that final bit where, I don't know, to me the energy felt like it dipped a little bit, not just in the crowd but also with commentary as well, when they were like, this has got to be it, no, this has got to be it, no, this has got to be it. Towards the end, that was my feeling towards the end, and it didn't detract too much from the match, but I think it tried to do a bit too much in the ring at the end, whereas they could have, shaved a few minutes off, and the crowd would have been more into. Well, it would have hit when the finish would have happened when I felt the crowd peaked energy wise, at least.
Yeah, even in my recap, I cut out quite a lot. I just made it very streamlined, and what you were just saying there is well, my version of the ending is actually a lot more streamlined than what happened, because we got a lot of extra moves and fluff and momentum swings, where maybe if it was a bit more straightforward, it might not have needed that kind of thing. But yeah, they got in their fancy moves. They're built to the big spot rather than hitting the things, and it adds to the story that I've put on top of it, which I'm assuming the one of ELP being a bit too desperate to win. They'd like to give a reason for somebody losing rather than them just losing like flat out, and it really adds to the next thing where the next time they encounter each other, El Fantasmo is likely not to do that, and it really adds to it. That is lost thing. But the question now becomes, who will be the man to defeat Will Ospreay? Likely at the Tokyo Dome. It wasn't Shingo all the way back at Best of Super Juniors. It could be him at Wrestle Kingdom. It wasn't Phantasmo. It wasn't Ishimori. There aren't many names left.
Robbie Eagles.
If we don't get the Birds of Prey facing off, there is one name we can think of. It's the Tokyo Dome. Obviously, Tokyo Dome.
I was going to say Desperado, but Taguchi!
Everyone's favourite junior challenger, Taguchi. Every time he gets put in a match, it's just non-stop complaints from the Western fans. Just not Taguchi.
But he always puts on good matches.
Yeah, he's kind of like Toru Yano in the sense of he can wrestle, he just doesn't want to, in a way. Like, when he wants to actually put on a good match, he generally can.
Have to.
Yeah. Like, he can save his energy, he can retire happily without loads of back pain. Just piss about in his matches. Yeah. But yeah, it could be Hiromu, it could be, there's a keep on with the Hiromu watch, it could be Shingo for yet another one, but they were kind of emphasising that Shingo's a heavyweight now. That could be so you're not expecting him to come out, so it's a nice surprise when he does, when we get Ospreay Shingo 2. Or it's because it's not going to happen, so they're just letting us know beforehand that Ospreay won't be happening, it'll be something else. You don't know. They create many roads, and you don't know which one they'll pick. So that's awesome. Next up, we have our next match affected by the typhoon. No disqualification match for the vacant IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. Still quite a long name. With Juice Robinson facing now Lance Archer.
You're forgetting something. And don't worry, it was pretty forgettable.
I'm forgetting something that's
Yoshihashi,
forgettable.
Tomohiro Ishii and Goto versus Takahashi, Kenta and Jay White.
Oh, it's just not even... I'm going down my column. I've not written about it.
It was quite forgettable. This felt like the New Japan had, instituted the piss break match.
Yeah. I used it to finish off all the different bits in the column, so I'm ready to go on to the next bit.
Yeah.
So, because writing as I was watching, which is not really something I do. I make notes normally when I'm watching, but because I wanted to get this column out, I was writing at the same time, so I chose my spots. And that match was one of those where I flat out just didn't watch it. I listened to it.
And look, in this one, Yujiro Takahashi and Yoshihashi did a little bit too much of the work for me, for my liking. And we know now why it was there. It was to set up Ishii versus Kenta and Goto versus Jay White. And most of the fun in this match was those two pairs sort of playing mind games with each other. Like Kenta, there was a great moment when Kenta was tagged in and he went over to the corner that Ishii was in and sort of leaned over and then jokingly feigned away from it and made a joke out of how he was scared of Ishii but was actually smirking on the side of his face. And I was kind of, hoping Shibata had run out at the end of all this, but it didn't happen. Goto picked up the win over Takahashi and with the GTR, and it's nothing to write home about. You didn't miss much by missing this in a review.
Nothing to write home about. In my case, not at all. It's like it didn't happen. So after that is when we actually got our no disqualification vacant United States Heavyweight Championship match. It's a bit of a mouthful. Juice Robinson, Lance Archer, because John Moxley wasn't able to make the show. And first off, Jesus Christ, my God, what an outfit from Juice. It's just,
amazing.
JP, who was on Yamaguchi, he made quite a hilarious tweet of it's like he's come from the Serbian fashion show. it's just
That's great.
Oh my word.
Juice always has the best outfits.
And there are people who generally don't like Juice, and this is one of the reasons they don't like him, and I'm just like, but his outfits are so over the top, I can't help but love them. But yeah, he's got a fashion style. It's one of those of, but he looks stupid. It's like, but have you seen the reactions he gets from the women of our ringside? That man fucks. He knows what he's doing.
My first, I just looked down at my notes, and literally my first note is new threads, Juice best dressed in New Japan.
But yeah, he's one of those where he's just like
Sonata probably.
Sonata's like the kind of he wears the sort of clothes where he just walks down the beach and he's the light side of Los Ingobernables de Japón. Compared to Evil's like devil fashion sense, whilst Juice Robinson is straight from the catwalk. That kind of weird, kind of elaborate, flamboyant outfit.
Straight from the 60s.
He's definitely like flamboyant.
I see him and I think of like those photos of the soccer player George Rush from the 60s and 70s. In the or the photos of the Beatles, and they're all wearing their big fur coats and the sunglasses, and that's what I think of when I see Juice in an outfit like that. I think it's incredible. It's great.
But once he was out of that outfit and the match began,
he lost his power.
Things didn't look great after because they brought on the outside, but then we got the choke slam from the Murder Hawk as he's donned himself. On the ringside like announcer table, and he choke slammed him right through it, over the guardrail, through the table, and he slammed him down with force. It was just kind of like, yep, take your time, Lance Archer, taking off all the turnbuckle pads, setting up tables, just decorating the ring. Just take your time, because Juice is going to need a little while. Because Jesus Christ, he hit that choke slam with force, and it's like it's solid concrete under that as well. It's like, bloody hell. Just give him a minute. Ugh. But this match very quickly descended into chairs and tables. And that was pretty much the majority of the match. Chairs and tables, swinging of steel, fighting against each other, just taking it in turns to slam the other person through the other thing. It was a flat-out brawl, like, from the get-go. I like the idea of immediately you have Juice Robinson fighting back from like the Murder Hawk, essentially murdering him. And I donned it in the column, the Murder Choke Slam. Because, almost killed him with that. But Lance Archer, once again, looked amazing in this match. He was absolutely killed it once again, and very, very deserving. They put it over in Kayfabe World on commentary as like he had a great performance in the G1, and then he's been undefeated on the tour when they went to America. So, kind of makes sense that he gets a reward for that. And that reward was actually winning. So, yeah, well done. Also, it was the thing of Juice Robinson is a former champion for a reason, and they had him just constantly kicking out whatever he did. Even the top rope blackout onto the pile of chairs, that wasn't enough to put Juice Robinson out.
That was nasty.
He essentially had to squeeze the life out of him with the claw afterwards to keep him down. Like pretty much choke him out in a way, send him into an unconscious state to actually pin him. And a more literal thing of everybody dies, where he's sent into an unconscious state. But yeah, a out-and-out brawl, which is kind of what we expected to begin with. So they delivered on the match they promised. It was obviously just with different people and with less emotion between the two. But still, out-and-out brawl.
I'll be honest, Tim, I didn't like it. Ooh. I didn't like this match. And I wanted to like it because I liked Lance Archer being champion. I love Juice Robinson. Sucks that he lost, and I'm not just bummed that he lost. But I don't know, when I think of the really great hardcore matches, what this did that I just couldn't, it just didn't gel with me, was it spent too much time setting crap up. That time when Juice was down, and even that, and Lance went around and he put a table there, he put a table there, he put a chair there, he put a chair there, and it was, and then even after that, and then when they got back in the ring, what did they do? They hit a chair, they hit a chair, they hit a table, they hit a table. It just, I don't know, it didn't have enough spontaneity for me. And even when after they'd done that, then what happens? They both rolled the outside and they both start throwing chairs in. It's, I don't know, to me, I mentioned Edge before, and it's funny that you brought up Edge because I was thinking back to hardcore matches I've loved, and I always go back to the Mick Foley versus Edge match. And I think Edge is just a master at putting matches together where you have this furniture, but you don't notice it getting set up. And so when it happens, it feels spontaneous, and the escalation of things doesn't feel forced. Like with this, it just felt so forced with the Lance Archer walking around and undoing everything, then doing this, and then because they've set those things up, then they've got to hit all four of them in a row, and it just felt too predictable. Whereas, their match, they start out where they, Mick Foley gets the sock out and he has barbed wire around and he puts it in there, and then Edge hits a spear, but turns out Mick Foley's got barbed wire around his waist, and it just kind of escalates and goes up step by step, and this just didn't do that for me. And I'm happy that Lance Archer is the champion, because I think he will be a really good US champion, and I think ultimately long term for Juice Robinson being US champion again's probably not the greatest thing, because it's almost been a level he's been at for a little bit too long. You don't want to be at the same level for too long, and this means that he isn't. But I just didn't. I don't know. I didn't feel the match. It didn't draw me in the way that I wanted it to, and it felt a little bit too contrived for my liking.
Sounds a bit like the benefit of someone like me, where I am taking my shots when I can to write. In a way, so in these periods where he was just setting everything up, I just go back to writing, and then when I hear the action kicking up again, I'll switch back. So he's like, yeah. So obviously, where he's setting up everything, he's like, well, I know what he's doing, but I'm going to just finish my paragraph from the last match, kind of thing. But that possibly helped me enjoying this one, so the downtime wasn't down for me. So I was like, quick, get back to writing. I personally, I did enjoy it for the brawl that it was. And the right person ended it. But for me, the actual high came after the match when we got our reuniting. So as I was saying earlier, I was talking about the Young Lions, that I have got an affiliation with the David Finlay, Jay White, Roppongi 3K era of Young Lions, because David Finlay returned after being out for months with a shoulder injury, and he attacked Lance Archer, I forgot his name for a second, and Finn Juice are reunited. They're back together. The Irishman appears to be in the best shape we've seen him in, like in his entire New Japan run.
He did look good.
And he's one of those guys where he was a young lion, but he seems to have reached Toa Hanare area, where he wasn't really getting past a certain point. But his team with Juice Robinson did get over, so they've got that to work with. And if he comes back in the shape he looks to be in, then he could actually challenge Lance Archer for a bit, not win, but he can put in a good performance and probably feel like he's elevated. But of course, when he was coming up, the US title didn't really exist, and when he was last in New Japan, it was really for higher guys as it was getting established. But now, where it's at, he might be in a shot for being in that division.
Hey, I want to stop you there. That man won the C block of
he did.
G1 2018.
And because he was injured, they weren't able to get the trophy, which he broke back. Oh, yeah, it all makes sense. Not really much really to add. It's just, Finlay returned, so good for Finlay. He's back. Well done him. Next up, we got Dream or Top, to which everybody went, when did everybody just stop calling bottoms and it's now Dream? No. The G1 winners IWGP Heavyweight Championship right to challenge contract, that's more words than the last one, is on the line. The opportunity for the G1 Heavyweight Championship at Wrestle Kingdom. Kota Ibushi, the G1 Climax winner, versus Evil, with evil consequences if Evil was to win. But this is our first match where, as we were saying earlier, we would come back to it. Now to that point, these last two matches, the main thing they both suffered from, I feel like the main event dealt with it better, but it's that issue of you kind of knew who was going to win. There really wasn't... The stakes were kind of lowered because of that. I feel like this match was worse off than the main event. Because as Okada, and especially when he faces Sanada, those two just have an ability to kind of make you forget, at least to do with me, where I kind of forget the bigger picture, and they have Okada so out that you're like, oh, wait, is Sanada actually going to win here? Just because he's not just out of it, it's not just against momentum, he's so against momentum, and it's so in Sanada's favour that in usual matches, this will be the way the momentum swung because he's going to win. But no, they use that tactic to trick you to cause Sanada's not winning. It's Okada. This match of Ibushi Evil, they kind of needed that, because for me, even though Evil had a lot of offense on top, and on commentary they put it as Evil, that he had the better of pretty much the entire match, a step ahead of Ibushi, but that's just not how it felt to me. Even though the commentary were putting it across in that way, it didn't really come across to me as Evil was doing better than Ibushi. It was like Evil was, again, I guess, he was desperate to win, to prove himself, to beat Ibushi, whilst Ibushi was just taking his spots, taking his moment, and when need be, he fought back and won. and it was never really in doubt
Yeah.
to me. Yeah, do you feel the same way?
It felt like this match felt like when Evil was on top, it was and I really like this match. Evil's having low key having, you know, a pretty good year, a really good year. But this felt like when Evil was on top and dominating, but Ibushi was always just a couple of strikes away from getting that momentum back, and in the end, that's what happened. He ended up just hitting his moves at the end and getting that win, despite having been beaten down quite a lot by Evil. But I really liked that it felt like that flow gave. I really like the contrast in this match between it being sort of more slow and heavy going with Evil, and not in a bad way, but in sort of a hard hitting way, where it felt like Evil was really trying to beat Kota Ibushi down, and then when Kota Ibushi would go on offense, suddenly everything would accelerate to that pace that Ibushi gets. And we didn't quite get Murder Ibushi, where he goes psycho and just, and tries to kill his opponent. But we certainly got, those hard kicks and the big super Hurricanranas and the suplexes and the bastard driller. When he hit those, it came on like a storm, and I think long term it sets him up well for going against Okada, for being able to like suddenly turn it on and really push a pace that is hard to match. But I enjoyed this match, even though both of these, as you said, at no point did I ever think Evil was going to win. It was always just a matter of time before Ibushi would pick up the win, but it was still fun to watch.
Yeah. One quick note as well is we're seeing Ibushi not just in Ibushi shape, but in Ibushi who's about to main event Wrestle Kingdom shape. Like, he looks even more ripped, which is like, he was like a chiseled statue of perfection before, and now he comes out, he's like, oh my god.
Did you see what John Moxley said about Kota Ibushi?
No.
He goes, he was getting videotaped, and he goes, I hate that guy.
Oh, yeah.
I have to work my ass off for my mediocre traps, and he does nothing. You see what he's got.
It just... he's seemingly getting even more. Maybe this is what Ibushi would have looked like if he does work out, like a bit more. Like Ibushi putting his ass off. This is what he starts to look like. It's like, oh, that's not fair. It's insane, the conditioning that he's in. Yeah, but yeah, it just immediately hit me. He's like, he's main eventing Wrestle Kingdom, and he's somehow How is he bulking up? He was already like an insane condition. But yeah,
remember how on BTE they were telling Hangman Page he had to get bigger and leaner at the same time, and it was a joke. Yeah. Well, Ibushi does that somehow.
But in the terms of Evil, his opponent, it's that thing as we're saying where they've been bouncing off the main eventers, but recently is when they've actually been taking chips off of them. So, like in the G1 climb, the reason this match happened is because Evil won in the G1. So they've been proving they can actually beat these main event guys now. So that's why I'm saying that in the next couple of years, it's like surely they've got to actually break through and actually win a match with something on the line, and not just in the G1. But currently,
I feel like in the next year, either Evil or Sonata will probably will get a big win over one of the really top guys.
Plus, I love the story I made up, and I'm really annoyed I made it up because it's like, I will no longer think any story is as good as the story I made up for Evil is, where he calls himself the King of Darkness, but the darkness actually consumes him, and he just kind of falls a bit down as Sonata rises to the top. Just like, I love that story, but this got so much depth to it. But obviously that might not happen because they have respect for each other kind of build. Even if they fall out, that respect will still be there. Compared to my thing where he gets consumed by the evil. It's like, I love that story, but it's not going to happen. So yeah.
It was interesting. There was the Chekhov's tournament talk again on the commentary. But I thought it was interesting. They were talking about how Evil said he would win the heavyweight championship on night one and then win the tag championship the next night with Sonata.
Like, oh,
nice idea. The last thing I want to see is another match between Evil and Sonata and the Gorillas of Destiny.
It used to be them and Killer Elite Squad, but yeah, they've just moved on. It's like, oh, Evil and Sonata have been waiting for them to go into singles matches for like 2-3 years now. Like, I'm ready for them to move on to that next stage. Because Evil currently, Kevin Kelly accidentally, without realising, came up with a top-notch pun where I want to say it like Evil, where it's like, everything except win. Which is kind of Evil's kind of area. He puts in amazing performances and he looks great in the process, but when there's anything on the line, he's not going to win. But so eventually he's going to have to. They're taking chips off them instead of actually winning. Eventually it's going to happen. So,
and I'm really interested in because next year the G1 is going to be later in the year, because we're talking about this, and I think a big problem is that the Wrestle Kingdom main event is very much almost there was no question that Ibushi was going to lose. If he was going to lose the briefcase, it wasn't going to happen. There was no suspense around that. And I wonder if having the G1 later in the year, which will actually happen next year because of the Olympics, will make these sorts of matches a bit less common, in that we will actually feel like there's a little bit more suspense in the last few pay-per-views heading into or the last big, event shows heading into Wrestle Kingdom, rather than this year where, it has felt like the last stretch, Ibushi's going to win and Okada's going to win in their matches, and it has meant that those matches have had less suspense to them.
Yeah, I feel like last year we were kind of like spoiled last year, where it's like suddenly realising how great it was, where we had the whole Jay White breaking from Chaos. It's like weird to think this time last year that angle started at this show. That was the first time Jay White split from Chaos. Like, it's kind of mental to think about. But you had that split with Jay White, and then you had the slow formation of the super tag team of Okada and Tanahashi, which reached a peak in December. It's like you had quite a lot going on at that point, whilst this time this year, the big thing they've got going on is, you say, Chekhov's tournament, where it's not quite the same gravitas to it. This is not the same. Yeah, no. Big inter-brand, massive changes, and of course the massive teaming up, which you never thought would see happen. That means that this year there isn't really the opportunity to do that. Instead, they're kind of building up these next two shows. It's weird because obviously the investment in the characters and the wrestling is still there, but I'd be blind if I didn't say that last year's build around everything was still way more interesting, exciting than it is this year. Whilst this year we're kind of just waiting for the next thing to be announced, kind of thing.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if, for example, over the summer, the northern summer, that could be a time when potentially you could have someone like an Evil or a Sonata win that championship and then maybe go into the G1 as champion. But this year, but because there's such a big gap between the end of the G1 when you get who that winner is, and the actual Wrestle Kingdom main event, it has meant that there has been, I don't know, it's felt like a bit of a holding pattern. Holding pattern's probably the word I was looking for. It's not that it's not been enjoyable. It's just that there hasn't been that suspense and excitement around championship matches and these briefcase matches, because it's kind of been a foregone conclusion. But next year, that's all going to happen later in the year. And so there'll still be that great suspense when we hit the G1 of like, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then once we get out of the G1, it'll be less of a break before we hit the big Wrestle Kingdom show that one sets up.
Yeah,
I don't know. It'll be interesting to feel what the pacing's like when that happens.
It feels like this whole year really has been like setting everything up for next year to be like, you immediately start off with them at Wrestle Kingdom establishing these are your top guys, and you got building everything up, and then you got the guys who are underneath, like Sonata and Evil, and I guess Jay White to a level, already nipping at their heels saying we want to be champions as well.
Yeah,
so you got the established guys and you got the next gen guys already like set up essentially. So you're gonna see the next era really play out next year, whilst this year has felt entirely set up, which isn't a bad thing because of course, like we always talk about how great it is to see New Japan taking their time to tell stories, and it all pays off in the end, and they take place over years. And like obviously,
once Okada got the championship, it felt set up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, once Okada won in April, it felt, oh, well, he's going to hold that to the end of the year.
Yeah, which is normally you don't normally feel that with New Japan. So it's a very unique feeling to kind of have it. Basically, what it means is I'm looking really forward to Wrestle Kingdom and what comes afterwards, because they spent their time this year crafting it with care to then launch it off next year. So we'll see if it pays dividends. It's New Japan. I've come to trust them that it will, which is it's a nice feeling to have. That it's totally worth investing in these characters, because you get rewarded for what they're building to it, rather than they're putting a fast one to surprise you kind of thing. But in the main event, I've already kind of talked about the main event of Kazuchika Okada versus Sanada, the Cold Skull versus the Rainmaker, for the fourth time this year, I think already. Fourth time. They don't often do this in New Japan, where they have more than one feud face each other loads of times. Like we got Naito Ibushi, where we're kind of done. Weirdly, I'm not getting
Tanahashi and ZSJ.
Oh yeah, Tanahashi ZSJ, Sanada versus the Rainmaker. Like we don't often get that feeling, because as I'm saying, because it's setting stuff up, they're kind of holding back the next phase. So are we, as you're saying, that holding pattern, waiting for it to launch off. But with Okada Sanada, every one of their matches has been brilliant. And I love the story of each time Sanada gets closer and closer, and even in the G1 he did do it, so he's proven he can. It's just with it on the line, with the title on the line, he wasn't quite able to get to that next level, even though he almost had him. Like I love that elevation of Sanada, because it's now at that point of the next thing to happen is for him to actually win a title. That's the next thing to happen. They've set it up really well. It just meant in this match.
And did you notice Sanada kick out at 3.5 as well at the end?
No, he did, didn't he? Yes,
he did the old JBL where the ref goes 1, 2, 3, and then he kicks out just after the ref calls the winner.
Yeah, I'm putting over your move.
Just beat me.
Like I've been told, I'm taking the 3. Oh, Hogan used to do it all the time as well. Like I'll take the 3 because that's what I'm being paid to do. But I'm immediately looking strong and kicking out, like the millisecond that the count has been counted. They're like. Yeah, it's a nice way to build him up as well. I've also just realised, as I've got my column up, on one of the times I've written Sanada, I've put Sander, and that's irritating. I've missed one A.
Get in that edit.
But yeah, it was a really enjoyable match. It did go back and forth, and they painted the picture of, because these guys have wrestled each other so much, they know each other really, really well, and they were constantly countering each other's offense. Like when Sanada went for the springboard dropkick, like Okada was immediately there. Like the tombstone pile driver, constantly countered. With Sanada, even to the finish of the match, where Okada went for the tombstone, it was about to be countered into the skull end, and then Okada himself countered that into like a Michinoku driver type thing. And that was when he was able to finally hit a proper Rainmaker. That's the thing I like, because Okada versus like Kenny Omega, they would hit the Rainmaker quite a lot. It just wasn't enough to put away Omega. Whilst in this match, it was kind of like the Naito thing, where the Naito, he hits the Destino with a counter or like a running version, that it's not the real version. It doesn't have the same amount of oomph, so the person kicks out. With this, Okada hit the Rainmaker, but it was as a counter. It wasn't the proper Rainmaker, and he never hit the Rainmaker again until the end, so it was kind of protected. And I like that. It was constant countering. They know each other so well, they're constantly countering rather than able to kick out, which we've seen in the past.
And I liked how Okada had to go very high risk to beat Sanada. He certainly wasn't able to, I guess, walk his way through the match. He needed to really go all out to take, and he took it to Sanada right from the start. He started out with a really hot start, which is very, very different to how normally Okada really goes slow into his matches, but this one started out very quickly, very, very quickly. But Sanada was a step ahead of him a lot of the time, and you can see that Sanada has been like, Sanada is the one that's doing the chasing, and so he knows Okada. He studied Okada so well, and because of that, for most of the time he stayed a step ahead. And I've got a note in here that where is it? Sanada is basically Okada-ing Okada. And then when he got this, sorry, you go.
I was going to say that was really shown in that final sequence of like constant counters at an incredible pace.
Yeah,
where they were countering so fast that the two started like absolutely sweating their balls off. It was just a like an awesome sequence of constant counters, like you might expect now from a Okada Jay White match, where they're both so good at that counter wrestling. Like Sanada fits in really well in that.
And I loved the counter to the Skull's End when Okada did a sliced bread off the ropes. That was incredible. That guy, man, Okada. Is there any? You know, he has limited his moveset, but he can do anything. Like he pulled out a sliced bread while he was locked into a Skull's End, and then at the end, did you notice how he did the classic Okada move of "I've beaten you, now I'll shake your hand"?
Oh yeah,
it's like he did to Goto. It's like now I've beaten you, I'll shake your hand, and do you want to come into my stable?
Like, good job, kid. Kind of like, you suddenly remember with like Okada that he really can, like, he's a bit childish, but when he jumps from the top to the outside shouting "Scooby Dooby Doo," like he does have athleticism as well as childishness. Yes. Like, you can't not love him doing that stuff. But yeah, the ending of the match as he hit it into that, where Sanada was kind of, I really like the character thing of it. That it kind of destroyed Sanada to get that close and not win. When he's just crumpled on the mat, and then Okada's just sat next to him, really awkwardly, just holding his thumb up, just like the
Orange Cassidy thumbs up.
Yeah, just like okay, we cool, yeah. Just sat there really awkwardly.
And I liked, so even though Sanada did kick out at 3.5, you're right, he was distraught, and you'd think, like, for him, after finally beating Okada, you know, they've met twice this year alone, and both times Okada's beaten him, finally gets the win in the G1, and then he can't repeat it here. And it was kind of, he sold the emotion of it so well. Even though he's meant to be, and previously Sanada hasn't totally clicked with me, but you could feel the disappointment that he had because he's the Cold Skull. He's kind of been a little bit emotionless previously, but this time he really let it all hang out. He wore his heart on his sleeve when he lost.
And it's a similar kind of career moment where Okada really move on to the next stage as well. When Okada, on an even bigger stage of the main event of Wrestle Kingdom, when he lost to Tanahashi, because it was meant to be his kind of crowning moment, him becoming the ace, and he lost. He didn't win, and he went out of Wrestle Kingdom generally crying his eyes out. And it was like they don't shy away from that, New Japan. As in, if you put all on the line and you still fail, it probably would take a lot out of you, and they feel that in the wrestlers. They get distraught by losing at such a grand scale. Yeah. But of course,
and even though I think for both of us, even though this ending was entirely predictable, it seems like it hit emotionally for us anyway. They did what they could do, given that Okada was never going to lose. And you know, Sanada's not going to head into, for better or worse, Sanada's not going to be heading into Wrestle Kingdom, this massive double Wrestle Kingdom where they've got to sell out 2 domes. He's popular, but he's not going to head in as champion. You know, if this was New Beginning, he may have won, but it wasn't. It's King of Pro Wrestling, and Okada's the king.
Yeah, we've got to give Naito his moment. It's Naito's year, damn it. Can have that. But yeah, so after the match, obviously, you got Kota Ibushi and Okada with more Chekhov's gun for the tournament. But they make official, really, the IWGP Heavyweight match for January 4th. One thing I did like, because even though Wrestle Kingdom is 2 days, the contract says January 4th, so that's when you're getting your match. It doesn't matter there's a second day. January 4th is what it says, so that's what you're getting. Like, they didn't change that. I did kind of like that, and obviously that builds into the tournament. Sorry, Chekhov's tournament. We've done it that. I'm going to keep it calling that. So, yeah, it plays into Chekhov's tournament of, well, now you can do it, because all you have to do is not change the date on the contract, and it works perfectly fine. And in world, it makes all the sense in the world. I was like, yeah, I really like that. Of course, the next stage is to actually introduce the Intercontinental Championship. And we had both guys say they'd be perfectly happy to wrestle both nights. So the question is, what happens with the Intercontinental Championship? That we still don't know. And we're in October now. I'm assuming we won't know until Power Struggle I think it's like the first week of November. So, yeah, everyone online, you can be moaning about Saudi Arabia, a WWE show there. But within that same week, you're going to have Power Struggle, so you can immediately switch to being excited about Wrestle Kingdom. Like with a click of your fingers.
Don't watch the WWE. No, my tip is if it's not making you happy, then don't watch it.
Or, well, what I've ended up doing is watching it, but also kind of taking the piss out of it, in a way. And I got my harsh lesson of don't get invested in the characters last week, so I guess I'm right back to watching it, but not getting invested. Because I made a mistake. I paid the price. It's my own damn fault.
I can't not get invested. I know myself too well. That's why I can't watch it, because I care too much about this new generation that's being screwed over.
Read Sam's column on that.
About it,
yeah, read his column. He's got all of his thoughts on it, and that means he doesn't have to get all emotional about it again. But
about 100 other people as well.
But as you can tell, we are getting excited for Wrestle Kingdom, and we've got our Power Struggle show to send us on our way soon, where we'll get all of our surprises and what the actual card is going to start to look like. So get excited in November. It's really not that long away. We're halfway through October. Thank you to I can't believe his name. Thank you to SirSam for coming on to this show. Late at night for him, it's lunchtime for me. So thank you, SirSam.
Thank you very much for having me, Imp. As I said at the start, you can read my columns on lordsofpain.net. I'll actually also be on sports. So this is on Thursday. That's when you go live. Yes. Next week, I will be on Sports Entertainment is Dead with Plan, and we'll actually be reviewing, in Plan's new format, we'll be reviewing a New Japan match. Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kota Ibushi from the G1 final last year, which was my favourite match last year. So we'll be going in depth in performance art style on that match. And then the week after as well, I'll be on there looking at Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania, which was an interesting match to go back and review. One of my earliest columns was actually defending that match. So it was interesting to go back a couple of years later and go back to that match again and look at it in a bit of a different light and with some time to it as well, and with the ending sort of changed a little bit from what it felt like at the time. So yeah, you can check me out there or on lordsofpain.net, my columns, as Imp said, or on Twitter, Sir_Samuel. But thanks very much for having me on, Imp. Really appreciate it. It's always fun to get on the podcast and chat some New Japan. It's always a good show.
And as requested, I'll try and get him on in December whilst he's really excited about Wrestle Kingdom. Like it peaks the Sam excitement. Plus it'd be summer for him, so he gets a nice little
holiday.
Yeah. Plus I'm shivering.
Holiday.
Yeah, I'll be shivering inside, or he's like, "Oh, hey, I went out in the sun, him. Wasn't it lovely?" It's like, "Oh, screw you, Sam. With your summer." Yes, you can hear him next week on Sports Entertainment is Dead. Obviously, he's got a little baby girl, which I think I've already said congratulations to on this show before. So in terms of...
she's 1.
Oh,
she's actually turning 1.
Has it been that long?
It's been that long.
Oh.
Yeah, crazy.
Oh.
Actually, given the recording of this show, or the air date of this show, she will have turned 1 yesterday.
Feels
crazy. Time flies, man.
Yeah. I still feel like it was not that long ago when he messaged us all saying, "Yeah, I might have to take some time off because I've got a little Sam period." It's like, God, she's already 1. But yeah, so whenever SirSam has time to pump out a column, he has been. He also has to feel not completely devastated emotionally by wrestling. So New Japan hopefully gets him into a happy state as well.
Yes, it has been.
For me personally, getting back into writing about the West, because I know when I've debuted on the Laws of Pain main page, I've kind of become the New Japan guy. And Doc has always said, if WWE ever did enough to draw me over, I might actually start to do quite well in terms of people, because New Japan just does half the views no matter what, like maybe even less than that. Like the fact that my recent column has like 2 comments is like, oh my god, that's Right, slight technical hiccup, but I'll finish my point with Doc and then we'll sign off. So yeah, Doc was saying that if I ever got hooked in by WWE, then I'll be doing much better for myself, just because... Well, not better for myself, I could actually do quite well, because the writing style is a bit... it's got pretty pictures. People like pretty pictures.
I think the problem is people like hot takes and people like pain, and New Japan's just too good for hot takes. They don't like hearing about how great something is. They just want to hear about how bad it is. So that's why WWE columns do so well.
But
shout outs to Ray Cash.
Yeah. But I've also... yeah, the reason they get clicks is because they like to hear pain. That's what. So it turns out it's not WWE that's hooked me in. It's the actual just this wrestling world in America having its new change, like the whole thing. So it's AEW, NXT, and then I also watch Raw and SmackDown as well. So like the big four, I do a massive column at the end of the week. So it's not WWE it's pulled me in. It's wrestling as a whole. So that gets me more excited than what WWE are actually pumping out. There's some good in there, which is why my column format works really well, and it goes completely against the, well, you've done WWE, Matt, but you're still being happy. You've still not got that right. You need to stop being negative. But I talk about what I want to from each show, which kind of helps. So if there's something I really don't enjoy, just don't want to talk about, I don't talk about it. It's incredible. I can just skip over entire segments on pretty much shows. It's great. It works really, really well. Anyway, so that column comes out every Saturday. It takes me like all week to pump it out. They're normally like 4.5 to 5,000 words, so it takes me all week to put it out. As I said at the start as well, I've got my New Japan column which dropped yesterday on King of Pro Wrestling. If you want more, I was going to say in depth, but this is already like 2 hours 45 minutes, so as in depth as you can get. You can read that whenever it's out. Follow me on Twitter at the Damn Implicat. You can follow SirSam at
Sir_Samuel.
Yeah, I start leading it in now. I've just realised we've got loads of questions that I didn't answer, but we answered loads, so...
we don't have time.
Yeah, don't have time.
I gotta go to sleep, people. I got work in the morning.
I am back here next Thursday on LOP Radio. I don't know what I'll be talking about next week. I've not actually thought that far ahead, and I've not booked a guest till the week after. So I'll be talking about, I guess, the wrestling world in America, jumping back over there. This has been a nice week away from that, just to chirpily talk about Japanese wrestling. So hooray! But please do check out the other shows here on LOP Radio. Immediately the first one to plug is live after AEW on Wednesdays. We've got our new AEW post show, Dynamite After Dark, with Jamman and Jeff. On Fridays we've got Mavplan and Mazza with The Right Side of the Pond. Saturdays is reserved for our AEW Aftershock shows and our AEW show All About All Elite, which is the kind of a legacy version of it by Miss Van der Show Mystic whenever they're able to pump it out. Sundays is reserved for WWE Aftershocks. Monday, Kingdom of Honor with Jamman and his friend Jeff talking Ring of Honor, New Japan, MLW, whatever they want to. Tuesdays is the Global Revolution, wrestling from the wider wrestling world. Wednesdays is Planned Sports Entertainment is Dead, who you'll hear SirSam again. Has he already plugged? So please do check that out. And as I just said, next Thursday, it's me. One final thank you for everyone who's listened to this mega episode, taking a note from the Kiss Boys and going for the Lord of the Rings. Just super long show.
Stick it on 2 times speed, boys.
So one final thank you to SirSam, and from me I say adios, and SirSam says...
Cheerio, mate.
We didn't prepare that. Right, adios.